Good afternoon, everyone. I look like I just woke up. All right, so let's do this. Welcome to Homeschooling 101. My name is Gabrielle Critchlow. I am the owner and director of A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. That's the company that is hosting this workshop right now. And again, welcome. Thank you guys for coming. This is awesome. I'm so glad you guys are here. Whether you are watching this in real time or you are going to watch the replay, either way, thank you for coming. I do appreciate you being here. So let me tell you the purpose of this workshop. The purpose of this workshop is to connect parents to the world of homeschooling and to expose them to different types of education. So, since the pandemic began, there's been a surge of demand in homeschooling due to either the lack of remote learning. I don't know if you guys remember remote learning, that the craziness that happened with that, or just plain dissatisfaction with the school system. And even in the past couple of years, there's been the removal of certain topics from schools like critical race theory or even sex education. There's a bunch of different reasons why people don't really trust the school system anymore. And even furthermore than that, you may have heard about homeschooling, whether in a positive or a negative light, and you just want to know what all the fuss is about. Many of you may be homeschooling right now and you just want more information. You have questions and we're here to answer them to the best of our abilities. So this workshop is a part of our mission to tackle the academic challenges of all students and the emotional, mental, and behavioral changes that result from these challenges. And in doing so, we believe that we will improve our communities in the process. So if you are watching this in real time, if you're watching this live, awesome. But this will be available on the replay. So if you're watching this on the replay, that's awesome too. And the replay will be available on our channels soon. So right now, this is streaming live to our YouTube channel, to Facebook Live, and to Twitter. So it's streaming right now live, but the replays will be available when this is done. So if you miss it, if you had to leave, if you're not able to catch everything, don't worry about it. The replay will be available. So that's the beauty of this virtual world that we are in right now. I do want to share this little caveat here in regards to this workshop, is that the homeschooling laws are different in every state, right? And I intended for this workshop to be very general. Okay, so that's I want to share that little caveat there. So while our speakers will do the best we can to answer any questions that you may have, I encourage you to research the specific laws of your state. So we will share a couple of resources as to where you can learn about that. So this event is intended to be very generalized, but again, I encourage you to research the laws of your states, but we will share with you a couple of resources where you could do that. All right, so I'm going to explain the rundown for today. Oh, good afternoon. We got a comment. Hi, Anna. All right, so I'm going to explain the breakdown for today. So there's 6 questions that we're going to answer. So I'm going to tell you what those questions are right now. So the first question is, what is homeschooling, right? What is it? Let's The most basic question that there is. What is homeschooling? So that's the first question we're going to answer. The second one is a 2-part question. What is the paperwork involved and how does standardized testing work? The third one we're going to answer is, how do you choose a curriculum? So that's the first part. So it's actually 2 parts. So that's the first part. So now after the intermission, there's going to be a second part. So in the second part, we're going to answer these questions. How do I homeschool a child with special needs? The next one is, how do homeschool children get into the college or the military? And the last question we're going to answer is, what are some teaching strategies I can use? So that is going to be our breakdown for today. So we will answer your questions. If you have any questions, there will be a Q&A section at the end of the program, but you can post your questions in the chat right now as the speakers are talking. And I also want to let you know that there will be a raffle, right? So this is going to be an interactive workshop. So there will be a link to a raffle. So if you'd like to participate in the raffle, I will be posting a link in the chat. It will also be appearing at the bottom of your screen, and 4 people will have a chance to win a prize. And finally, we will include the speaker's information at the end of the program. So if you want to learn who the speakers are, get in touch with them, I will share that information at the end of the program. All right, so enough of my rambling. That's a lot of words I just said. All right, so let's get right into it. I'm sure you're like, get to it, get to it. All right, so let's do this. All right, so we are going to start with the first speaker of today. Her name is Shauna Anderson. Let me put up her banner. Where's her banner? There you are. Shauna Anderson. All right, let me tell you. So she is our first speaker for today, and she will answer the question, what is homeschooling? So let me just tell you about her. Shauna Anderson is the co-founder and CEO of Envata, having founded the company alongside Janine Lyman, who is her co-founder and COO. She is ultimately the chief visionary. I help make the education experience easier for families, whether they choose homeschool, alternative, or traditional learning systems. That's Shauna states. Shauna believes in offering experiential learning that is personalized for the individual. Her own journey and most treasured role as a mother to 6 children led her to create a company founded on such principles. Knowing how to work with children from the perspective of an educator, in addition to a parent, is what uniquely qualifies her to lead Envata. All right, so I'm going to bring Shauna to the stage. Hi, Shauna, how you doing today?
Great. How are you, Gabrielle? Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So you're going to tackle our first question for the day. What is homeschooling?
Yeah.
So without further ado, I'm going to let you take it away.
Well, what is homeschooling? There are lots of things that people think homeschooling is, but basically, what it is learning outside of traditional school. And back in the day when homeschooling became legal in the United States, homeschooling wasn't legal until the early 90s. So when it became legal, people were doing it in their homes, kind of sheltered away from the world. So there tends to be a connotation of what homeschooling is. People think about what's the show with all of those homeschool, all of the kids, the Duggar family, right? That's kind of like the image you get of homeschooling. But homeschooling has changed since then, right? There's so many more options available. It's now legal. It's open to anybody. There are some states, like Gabrielle mentioned, that have stricter laws and rules around homeschooling, but it is legal in all 50 states. It's growing, as you can probably imagine. The homeschooling, kids learning outside of school and being educated at home has been growing steadily since then, since the 90s. And you can only imagine how much it's grown since the pandemic. A lot of families think that they were homeschooling during the pandemic, but really that was just almost like school at home. And so a lot of times people really didn't experience true, good homeschooling, personalized learning. So, and there's a lot of misconceptions about why people homeschool. Homeschooling is an option for a lot of families. A lot of people think it's because of religious reasons, but mainly nowadays, about 80% of families homeschool their kids due to security concerns. So some tragic news lately of, all of the school violence, bullying, and like Gabrielle mentioned, things that are taught or not taught. So parents have been opting to educate their kids at home. And thankfully now we have all sorts of resources and help and tools and technology and curricula that's available to us now that wasn't available back, even 10 years ago. So homeschooling, like I said, is just learning outside of traditional avenues, learning at home. When we homeschooled our 6 kids, we actually were never really home. So I think the term homeschooling we need kind of like a different term. We were out in the community learning. We were at the library. We were on field trips. We were visiting businesses. So a lot of times learning happens outside when you're talking to people, when you're visiting places, when you're just living your life. So I think that there is a lot of misconceptions about homeschooling that hopefully, I know that a lot of the ladies that are here on the show with me today will be able to clear up and answer questions about. We have a lot of support now that we didn't. My background is I work in a charter school here in California. I've worked in this position for about 20 years, and we have been supporting students through the public school by learning at home and giving them a teacher that oversees their progress and helps the family. I took that model to build Invada, where we are education advisors that kind of help and oversee and support and guide your family through your unique educational journey. And that looks completely different for anybody and everybody. Every kid is different. It is so hard to standardize education. Up till now, when I was growing up, we had to go to school because colleges were the gatekeepers of knowledge. Now we have YouTube, we have mentors, we have homeschool curricula that you can use. So it's a lot more available and accessible. And there is still, like I said, a lot of misconceptions about, can you homeschool? Is it expensive? How do you do it? Do your kids actually learn more at home? And the answer to the last question is yeah. Kids that are homeschooled perform way better than kids that are not kids in public school. So some statistics that I have pulled up here. Home educated kids typically score about 15 to 30% points above public school students on standardized tests. So, and actually in 2015, a study found that Black homeschool students scored 23 to 42 percentile points above Black public school students. So more and more students of color and families are choosing this route because they are not feeling supported or not getting the resources that they need in traditional schools. 78% of peer-reviewed studies on academic achievement show homeschool students perform significantly better than those in institutional schools. And this is regardless of families' household income or zip codes. Homeschooling now provides a way for families to no longer be tied to a zip code for their education. You used to have to feel like if you lived in a good neighborhood, you had a good school, right? But if you were one of the many that didn't live in a good neighborhood, you don't have access to those resources that other students do have access to. So educating outside that system, you now have the ability to have resources that are, I would argue, better than what's at your local public school. A lot of parents wonder, wow, I would love to homeschool my kids, but I don't feel like I'm qualified to do that. Well, that's a big myth that I hear all the time, or big kind of a stumbling block for parents. And I always say, you are your kid's first teacher. And so other studies have shown that if your parents of students are not certified, it's not related to their academic achievement. So whether their parents were teachers or not, homeschool students still achieved a lot and better than the public school students. They typically score higher on SAT and ACT tests that colleges look for. And a lot of colleges, not a lot, but there's a handful of really good colleges that are actively recruiting high school students that are homeschooled. And I'm sure, I think one of the ladies on our call today will be able to answer those questions about getting into college. And it's just, I think it's better for students to pursue their own passions. We talk about self-directed learning and personalized learning, but in the classroom, it's really, really hard to do. And if you are learning outside of school, you can take that time to delve into the interests of your students. What takes 8 hours in school typically takes half of that at home, because they have the one-on-one, they have actual curriculum that they can use that jives with what their learning style. So I see a question in the chat, and Gabrielle, please let me know if I could talk for hours and hours on this, but please let me know if we're running short on time. I think I had about 10 minutes.
You're still good. We're gonna just save all questions for the end. So we'll just let people, they could post if they want, but we'll put all
questions at the end. Okay. Yeah. But thank you, Sarah, for that question. So yes, homeschooling, what is it? I think it is the education of the future. I think it's a future of learning. I think that's where education has to go. It has to be personalized now. If we can get personalized movie recommendations on Netflix, why have we not figured out how to hyper-personalize a student's, a learner's pathway through their education? And I believe that we can do that now, and I believe it's more efficient, and I believe it's better for our kids. You can absolutely homeschool your kids, whether you're rich or poor, whether you live in rural areas or the city. Really, the access and the availability to what is out there to teach your kids it's enormous. And I would almost say it's overwhelming, which is one of the things that we see at Invada. Parents come to us for help because there's just so much choice. Like, please help me narrow this down. So there's almost too much now, which is a good problem to have. Other statistics that I can share about homeschooling. Yeah, kids with disabilities. A lot of the times we see that kids that have an IEP in a traditional school might not need the accommodations or a lot of the things that they have trouble with in school kind of melt away when they're at home. So not everything, I'll say that with a caveat, but a lot of times the one-on-one personalization of their learning helps. Let's see. I think with COVID, many of us saw and had an inside view into what was actually happening. And many parents were like, wow, is this all that is? I can easily do this. And then trying to do it can get difficult. There's ebbs and flows to homeschooling. I think it's really important to have support, whether that's in a homeschool group or whether that's with an education consultant like the ladies we have on the call here, whether it's with Gabrielle and her tutoring services. I think that if you want to homeschool and you feel like you can't see a pathway to it, people like us can for sure help you find that pathway, because it's absolutely possible to homeschool in this day and age, more so than ever. With the ed tech that's available to us, with I think COVID actually was a blessing in a way, because it kind of forced us into a environment that many of us weren't comfortable with by learning digitally. And a lot of us learned some tools and tricks and tips that we wouldn't have learned if we were just in the classroom. So that's kind of all I have to talk about. But with homeschooling, just know you have the freedom to follow a different path, your own unique path. And I think it is really important, I would say very important for parents to really be a part of your learner's education. A lot of times we just farm that out and let other people take care of it. But really, as a parent, it's probably one of the most important things you can do. And I feel like I have a vested interest in your kids as well, because they're going to be running the show in a few years. And I want them to be compassionate, wonderful, educated, driven, happy, adjusted adults. And I think they will be. I think there are lots of reasons to homeschool. And happy to answer questions and be available if any of the listeners or watchers need more information.
Thank you so much, Shauna. That was awesome. Thank you so much for that. All right, so Shauna just gave you guys a mouthful there. I hope you guys took advantage of that. So if you have any further questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But again, we're going to answer all questions towards the end. But as the speakers are coming on, feel free to put your questions in the chat. So we already got one question. Very good. So let's keep it coming. All right, so we're going to move it right along to speaker number 2. She is a repeat speaker. Her name is Tamara Somerville. So let me tell you who she is. So she will be answering our 2-part question. What is the paperwork involved and how does standardized testing work? So let me tell you who she is. So Tamara is a stay-at-home homeschooling mom and loves her community. She co-founded the Facebook group Westchester Homeschoolers to connect homeschooling moms like herself to other homeschooling moms in Westchester County in order to foster relationships, increase socialization among their children, and navigate the daunting paperwork for homeschooling in New York State. She also co-authored the book African American Families, Why We Homeschool, which is now available on Amazon, and she's working on her solo project. And furthermore, her homeschooling podcast will launch in January 2023. All right, so I'm just going to bring Tamara to the stage. Hey, Tamara, how you doing?
Hello there. Thanks for having me back.
Of course. All right, take it away.
Okay, so I'm answering the question in regards to the homeschooling paperwork and the standardized testing or assessments. And so I want to just first address homeschool reporting and assessments are typically about paperwork, and paperwork is not a big deal. Parents are often concerned with completing paperwork correctly, especially if you live in a low or no regulation state. That's pretty easy. But I live in New York, which is considered a high regulation state. But again, regulations and paperwork typically refer to paperwork. So in New York State, you have realistically 4 pieces of paperwork that you need to submit when you are homeschooling. The first is the letter of intent, and I'm going to go over each one separately, but I want to just list them out for you. The first is the letter of intent, or the LOI. That is followed by the individualized homeschool instruction plan, or the IHIP. For those of you who have an IEP, it's very similar to that. Next is your quarterly reports. There are 4 of them, but I'm going to show you how to break that down to 1, and then your annual assessment or your standardized test. Okay. And I want to show you how to do this in a manner that is no big deal. So the first thing is a letter of intent. This is your letter for notifying your local school district that you intend to homeschool. It is literally 1 sentence. It says, we intend to homeschool our child or children for the 2000 whatever to 2000 whatever school year. So for instance, mine says, we intend to homeschool Raina and Adam for the 2022-2023 school year. So I'm going to show you how to keep this no big deal. No big deal says, remember it's 1 sentence. You can add multiple children to the same document. So in many districts, this is completely okay. So if you've got, as Shauna mentioned, she homeschools 6 kids. I don't think she's in New York though, but if she was, she can put all 6 of the kids on 1 document. So 6 kids, 1 document, 1 sentence. But even in that level of simplicity, I want to help you make it even more simple. The following year, if you're brave enough to homeschool multiple years, the subsequent year, copy that document and change the year. That's it. I'm telling you, the paperwork is no big deal. So the next thing, once you submit that letter of intent to your school district, it is addressed to your superintendent. However, it will be submitted to most likely a homeschool coordinator or some homeschool contact in the district office. But once you submit that, they are going to then send you a copy of the homeschool regulations. Now in New York, it's multiple pages and it reads like a legalese. They will also include forms for you to fill out to allow you to submit these documents. However, you are not required to fill out their forms. They, however, are required to give you a document by which to facilitate the reporting. So the next document is the individualized home instruction plan, or the IHIP. And it has to include several things. And I'm going to go over a couple other states, but since I'm in New York and it's one of the more regulated or more documented state for homeschooling, I'm going over these. One of the first things on the IHIP is your child's name, age, and grade. We all know that. It also asks you for the name of the instructor. If you are the homeschooling parent and you're the primary instructor, that is half of the requirements of this document already fulfilled. Like I said, no big deal. The next thing it's going to require is dates that you'll submit your quarterly reports. You're going to grab a calendar, look at the school year, and you're going to pick 4 dates. And when you do that, you're going to take those 4 dates and put them on the report. 3/4 of your report is already done. If you're listening live, type no big deal in the chat. 3/4 of the report is finished. For most parents, this is the most difficult reporting document to submit because they feel like it is so overwhelming. You've got to give them so many things. But we've already covered 3/4 of the documentation is done. The next thing, and the most substantial part of this document, is your actual plan of instruction. What are you going to do? What are you going to teach in the required subjects? Well, even in this, I want to just tell you this quick story. My first year of homeschooling, I decided to homeschool. We've been homeschooling now 10 years. I decided to homeschool that first year 2 weeks before school started. And so I had no plan of instruction. I had no money to buy curriculum. And I didn't know what we were going to teach in order to fill out this document. And so I put for math, I signed up for a free website. At the time, it was free. I got the 30 days for free, IXL.com. And for history, I chose a documentary on Netflix. And I said that we would do indoor and outdoor activities for physical education. I did I chose a book that I already had on my bookshelf for science. And yes, Bethany, it is simple because it's just paperwork. But New York and many states do have required subjects you are required to teach. And so in that case, in New York specifically, you have 3 ways of submitting your plan in regards to, you can list the syllabus, which some parents will copy the table of contents from the books that they're using. That's way too much paper for me to be copying. I like trees. I like the outdoors. I want to keep them there. So I'd rather not make copies of that. You also have the option of writing out a plan. That is too much on my brain. I don't want to think about that. So I skip that option as well. And the final option you have is to write the curriculum and the textbook you're going to use. Well, that's the no big deal option that I chose. And so my report looks like this: my child's name, their age, their grade, my name for the instructor, the 4 dates that I'm submitting the report, and then I list the subjects required: math, Saxon; language arts, spell to write and read; history, geography, foreign language, science, and art; classical conversations, foundations and essentials curriculum. That's a group that we belong to, that we meet with weekly. But now my report is done. The only subject I haven't covered was physical fitness, and again, indoor and outdoor activities. So it really isn't. It really is not a big deal. And I also add this one note: we may use any of the above material in whole or in part during the school year. This allows me to change curriculum if I'm not happy with what we're doing, and we're not required to update the school district if we change curriculum. So for instance, my first year when I had no money and no plan, and I chose whatever was available in the library, my bookshelf, and online for free, eventually I did choose a math book and some other things, and I simply changed. I didn't have to do a new document. But that's the IHIP. The next thing is our quarterly reports. Think of this like the report cards that you received when you were in school and probably hid from your parents. You send it 4 times a year based on the dates you chose in your IHIP. And again, you aren't required to use the district's forms that they send you. You can choose your own method of reporting this. And you will send it 4 times a year, but I don't want you creating 4 separate documents. When we went to school, they gave us one document with 4 columns, and for each quarter, they had grades. That's what we're going to give them back. That's what the professionals are sending home, who are certified teachers, who have master's degrees. You get a column that says your child has an A in math. What does that mean? What did that cover? How much math do they know? What level of math are they on? We don't know. We're just happy they have an A. Well, my first year, my first quarterly report was literally 3 pages long. And then it included an addendum, which had all of our trips. Way too much stuff. But honestly, what I was trying to appease was my own sense of that I have been teaching my child. And I wanted that to be shown on paper, that my child was getting a good education. But really, out of sheer laziness, I stopped doing that because I just didn't want to spend that amount of time. And I've been in 3 separate school districts, and not one school district has ever told me that my method of reporting was incorrect. So after my 3-page plus an addendum report, I now do the same thing they gave me. I list all the subjects: math, science, history, foreign language, physical education, art. I list those, and I list either, with my daughter, I list a number grade. With my son, I made up a grid of 1 to 4 to determine how he was doing, and I identified what those numbers mean. So there is no magic way of reporting. Whatever floats your boat, whatever feels best to you. Because again, when you consider what the professionals have given us as parents in terms of a report, I think we go way into left field trying to really appease ourselves and knowing that we've homeschooled our kids properly. So that report is done. Again, you create one report, update it each quarter, fill in the next column, and you are all set. The last thing is the annual assessment. Now, this is separate from that 4th quarter report. So although you are still going to do a 4th quarter report, you also need to complete an annual assessment for the entire year. Grades 1, 2, and 3, it can be a narrative written by you. Now, Our New York State regulations actually state that it should be a New York State certified teacher or a homeschool peer review panel or an other person. Read an other person, read parents, read you. And it says that is to be approved by the superintendent. Also, we're going to make an assumption that we are already approved. Let them tell you that you're not, because we want to make this no big deal. So we're not going to ask them, hey, can I write it? And then wait for them to answer us and then decide how we're going to proceed with our reporting. Write it yourself, submit it. They will either accept it or they'll tell you they need one of the other two options to do it. Even in that case, you can now submit the document you've written to the other person who's writing the report. Because again, they may not know your child. They definitely won't know your child as well as you do. Now, as your child gets older and completes the upper grades, in grades 4 through 8, and again, this is in New York, grades 4 through 8, you may only use the narrative every other year. So I would suggest you start with continue the narrative in grade 4, switch to a standardized test in grade 5 that'll only give you 2 times you'll need to do it within grades 4 through 8. So narrative grade 4, assessment grade 5, narrative grade 6, assessment grade 7, narrative grade 8. And then finally, in the high school years, grades 9 through 12, you are required to do a commercial standardized test every single year in the state of New York. But they give you a list of, there is a list of approved tests that you can use, everything from things that we're familiar with as parents, the standardized achievement tests or the SATs, not the college SATs, the metropolitan test, California. I want to just mention a PASS. It's an exam called the PASS exam. It was actually created by a homeschooling company. It is untimed and it is a paper test. We started homeschooling in 2nd grade, and that by 3rd grade, I decided, actually my husband wanted to do a commercialized test, a standardized test to see where my daughter had, how she was progressing over the 2 years that we had homeschooled up to that point. And we did it as a group. So a number of parents got together, we separated the kids by grade, and we proctored the different exams. Well, in my daughter's room, as the last person besides herself turned in their test, she got up and turned in her own test. And when the proctor asked her if she was finished, she said, no, but it's playtime. So she just got up and walked away. So I obviously did not submit that exam because she didn't finish it. But you want to have some considerations. If you're in a state that requires standardized testing, there are a couple things you want to consider. Consider the setting. I would wholeheartedly tell you to avoid sending them, if they even allow it, sending them to the public school to get tested. That's going to be a foreign environment to them if they've never been there or if they just haven't been there that year. But even in a homeschool setting, you want to consider, will your child do well in a group? Mine did not that first year. Or would they prefer to be tested at home? You also want to consider proctor requirements. Some exams require that the person overseeing the exam have a bachelor's degree or higher. So you want to look at that before you choose the test format. The other thing you want to choose is you want to be mindful of is, does your child do well with an electronic test on a computer? Do they not type well, and will they have to type for this exam? Or will paper and pencil be better for them? Also, I mentioned to you my daughter's test that year that she took the first test. It was a timed test. There are untimed options. The PASS exam is untimed. And also then finally, just ease. Remember, this standardized test is used to fulfill the annual assessment requirement. And because you need to submit that with your to your school district, if you've taken a standardized test, they're going to send you a report. They send you the report, you just send it right to the school district. So there's an ease in not having to write that narrative. So remember, I'm trying to make it no big deal. Remember, it's about paperwork, and the less paperwork we can do, the easier it is on us as parents. But again, you want to consider, even if you don't believe in testing, or that, and rightfully so, testing is not the only measure of your child And it's a measurement of what they have remembered, what they can reproduce. It's also a measure of how well they take tests. It is not a measure of their intelligence. So just because you've given them an assessment doesn't determine your child's future. It does help you in the way of understanding where they are. At least it might, depending on, like I said, test anxiety. So you want to try to reduce that. But it is, again, it's no big deal. It's simply an idea for you to know what they can produce realistically under pressure. So you choose the exam, consider the setting, consider the proctor requirements, consider the format, consider the time needed for that test, and consider the ease. One other thing I'd have you consider is how much you have at the time you have actually allocated to testing. So for instance, with the PASS exam, I do it over 3 days, but it also requires me to order it, them to mail it to me because it's a paper exam, and then for me to send it back for them to grade it. So that obviously requires more time. The California Achievement Test, which my daughter does now, only I can literally sign up that day, take it that day, get the reports, get the report that day. So it's, if you're just coming into it, or you're doing it last minute, or you completely forgot about testing, an online test affords you that flexibility. But again, the assessments, the standardized tests are no big deal. They are not a measure of your child's ability or determination of your child's destiny. It's simply a snapshot of where they are now, and it's definitely a measure of how well they perform under pressure. So some other states in our area, because we're in the tri-state area, I took those 3 states. New Jersey has no notice, so no letter of intent. No qualifications are required for a homeschool instructor, so that you don't have to have, as a parent, any formal education. There is no standardized testing to be done. No, something that a lot of people are concerned about in recent years is there's no immunization requirements to submit. Many states actually don't have that for homeschoolers. The state of Connecticut, although they are also a low regulation state, I just want you to be mindful. If you are in Connecticut, you will hear many parents will say, oh, there's nothing to do in Connecticut. Connecticut is an optional requirement state, meaning it may send you a notification telling you have to let them know you're homeschooling, and it may send you a request for an annual portfolio review. It is optional. You don't have to do it. What I want to do is alleviate any anxiety you feel because you've now gotten this notification, and now I want you to just brush that off your shoulder and not worry about it. So like I said, you may receive notification, but you're not required to answer that notification. There are required subjects you need to complete in Connecticut. Some other states do require a portfolio review. I believe Pennsylvania is one of them. But again, whether you're in a low state, a low regulation state, a high regulation state, is just about the paperwork you need to submit. So here are some of my no big deal paperwork requirements, assessment requirements. Number 1, and Gabrielle already mentioned this a little bit, whatever state you are in, print your regulations. This is one chance where I'm going to tell you to actually use that paper. Print the regulations and read them annually. This will help build your confidence for when you are confronted with a request beyond what you feel it was required of you. The first school district I was in, my first year, the superintendent, we were in a small school district, and I actually dealt with the superintendent, and I was the first homeschooling family ever in that district. And he sent me a request my 4th quarter, after I submitted my 4th quarter report and my narrative assessment, that I needed to submit a standardized test. Because I knew the regulations, I literally copied and pasted that part of the regulations, sent it back to him, and reminded him my daughter was only in the 3rd grade, and at that grade level, she was not required to do a standardized test. He said, okay. Another school district I was in, we had just moved there, and the homeschool court sent me notification that I had to submit my daughter's birth certificate, both my children's birth certificate. And again, I copied that part of the regulations that said I'm required to give their name, age, and grade. Sent it back to her. She called me and let me know, said, Ms. Somerville, you are correct. You're not required to submit the birth certificate. I am asking you for the complete birth date and not just the age, though, because our system only allows me to pull the age out if I put in the full birth date. So I just have no other way of recording their age unless I put the birth date in. So I said, okay, fine, I'll give you the birth date, but I'm not giving you their birth certificate. That's not required. And she's like, okay, thank you very much. So again, whatever state you're in, read the regulations annually. This will build your confidence and help relieve any anxiety or pressure you feel when you're confronted with requests. Also consider HSLDA membership. If you are, there's a representative on the call with us, so she'll go over that. So I won't go over that, but consider membership with them. Also find local support through state homeschool groups. I'm a member of Homeschool New York. I was a chapter leader for them for a few years. We're part of a local co-op that meets weekly. You and your children need homeschool friends. It's not just about socialization for your kids. You need someone you can talk to on a regular basis, someone you know you're going to see next week. And so we're part of Classical Conversations. It's a weekly academic support group and curriculum group. And then social media. Social media has made things wide open. There is a New York State Q&A Facebook group. I run Westchester Homeschoolers Facebook group, about 1,600 families. But you can pretty much put in your county or your state, particularly on Facebook, and find a group of parents who are in your area, who understand your regulations and can help you simply sometimes just by providing copies of their reports. I often will send families in our area a generic copy of my quarterly report, of my letter of intent, and my individual homeschool instruction plan, particularly if they're using the Classical Conversations curriculum. So I want to leave you with this. Homeschool reporting and the standardized testing is simply about paperwork. And so you can make that really simple. It's really not a big deal. Your letter of intent, you have 4 documents you're sending. Your letter of intent, 1 sentence. You can put all the children on that 1 document. Your IHIP, you're simply going to list out 3/4 of it. You already know what to do. Just enter it, fill in the blank. You're going to list out your curriculum, literally the book you're going to use, and add that caveat statement. We will use all or part of the above mentioned curriculum throughout the school year. That allows you to change curriculum mid-year if you decide. And then your quarterly reports, 1 page, 4 columns. You just update the column each quarter, and then your annual assessment. It can be a narrative written by you, or it can be a standardized test for the levels that it requires it. And again, the standardized test is nothing to fear. It is simply a measure of your child's current knowledge, and it's also an assessment of how well they perform under pressure. So if it appears like they're not doing as well as you think, again, just look at look at the ways that they're doing well. One of the things I like about the PASS exam is that it does give you a year-over-year comparison of how your child's performing, and suggestions for what particular subjects or topics you may want to cover to help fill in any gaps. So it is no big deal to homeschool, even in a high regulation state. And if you need help, please reach out to any of the parents, any of the speakers on today's workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. Thank you so much for that. All right, that was very insightful. I hope you guys were paying attention. She shared a wonderful resource. So that's one of the resources that we're sharing with you today. The website is hslda.org. So we actually have a couple people from there who will be speaking with us today. But that is a resource that we highly recommend. So again, this workshop was intended to be very generalized, but to get the specific rules of your states, I highly encourage you to go to hslda.org. Okay, so let's move it right along to speaker number 3, So her name is Sandra Price Blyden, and she's going to answer the question, how do you choose a curriculum? So unfortunately, she actually couldn't be here today, but she was gracious enough to pre-record her answer, so I will play that shortly. So let me just tell you who she is. So Sandra Price Blyden was born on the Caribbean island of Antigua, West Indies. So fellow West Indian, whoop, whoop. As an infant, she left Antigua and relocated to St. Thomas, which is in the U.S. Virgin Islands, where she is currently a resident. In 1989, she graduated from Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia, with a Bachelor of Arts in Elementary Education. In 2013, she also completed a Master of Science degree in Reading and Literacy from Walden University. She has been an educator in the U.S. Virgin Islands for 30 years. So 16 years into her teaching career, she became a literacy coach in charge of implementing the evidence-based reading curriculum on the upper elementary level. After 6 years as a literacy coach, she returned to the classroom to continue her career in education. Then she officially launched her business, Blyden Curriculum Consulting LLC, in 2018. So Ms. Price Blyden retired in August 2019 and spends her time enjoying leisure activities and serving the clients of her consulting business. All right, so now I'm going to play her presentation right now.
Good day, everyone. Presenting curriculum your way. I will now share the screen. Curriculum your way. What parents need to know about selecting the right curriculum for their homeschool. You have 7 days before your homeschool starts. You have the school supplies, you have desk chair, cute storage, all your children already, the letter of intent and everything else you need to begin. However, you realize you actually need a curriculum. What is a curriculum? A curriculum officially is a guide that contains a sequence of planned experiences where students are immersed in content and the application of skills. This curriculum must contain goals, methods, materials, and assessments in order to support and facilitate instruction and learning. A homeschool parent may add that a curriculum consists of planned experiences that must be arranged, designed, and organized to fit what her or his family desires and needs at a particular time. The curriculum must be centered around what she thinks is best for the successful growth of her own child. Into what categories can curricula be placed into? And check the gumbo. We have to organize. Philosophy of homeschooling is something that you need to keep in mind when choosing your curriculum. What type of homeschool do you have or think you should like to have? In what ways do you or would you present your content knowledge, present it to your child? What guidelines or methods should you adopt that is a fit for your home? Choosing a philosophy or even deciding not to choose one is simply your choice. You need to take a good look at your child and ask yourself, what is it that he or she needs to keep engaged? What material or curriculum would he or she need to excel in all of the subjects area? Of course, we're still keeping your philosophy in mind if you decide to choose one. Now, right here, I have presented to you all of the different type of methods or philosophies of homeschooling. They are common ones established a long time ago and used today. On schooling, we have the Charlotte Mason method, a very common one, Montessori method, eclectic method, which simply means you're using a combination of all. That's a huge selection there. School at home, where you're bringing exactly what happens in the traditional school into your home. We have unit studies, the thematic approach, and literature-based methods. Other divisions or type of homeschooling, some people decide to think about their faith and want activities or a curriculum structured around it. Some faith-based curricula include Sunlight, Abeka, BJO Press, Life Pack, Easy Peasy Homeschool, that's a free one and very popular, and Alpha Omega Academy. We also have ethnic-based curriculum. There may be parents who prefer a curriculum from only vendors or instructors who are African American, Native American, Hispanic American, and more. It is a way for their child to be immersed in the culture, beliefs, and history of that race or ethnic origin. And we have some examples of these two types, African American and Native American homeschools. We also have Asian American homeschool curriculum, very limited resources on that. And we also have Hispanic American homeschool curriculum. We have Lemon Has and Nobis Passing. Check them out. Now you will have to consider whether or not you want a printed curriculum for your child, or you prefer that your child use both the online and printed curriculum. Many of them are out there, and you will notice that as you do your search. Now you're going to go through these search engines, think about all of these different things that were just presented, but you also have to make sure that it fits your budget. Now, this is an example of all the different type of, not all of them, but many of the different type of homeschool curriculum that you can find out there. On the right-hand side, we have a listing of the website that you can find many of the books for all of the major subject areas. We have for singular subjects. You could have for just reading, or some of them for math, some are online, some of them are offline. We have over here full and non-accredited down to the bottom left. We have Power Homeschool, Time for Learning, and Burbella Learning Academy. These are very popular ones. Okay, on the left and middle, we have full and online accredited. We have Maya Academy, very popular. Acellus Academy, Bridgeway Homeschool Academy, those are all accredited. Now, this is one of my favorite images. You can find this online in many of the Facebook groups. Nobody seemed to know where it originated, but this is also a good resource. It shows most of those different type of curricula or methods of homeschooling that I presented earlier. Very important topic, what subjects should you teach? 32 out of 50 states have requirements on what subject to teach, but many of them don't enforce it. So you need to think about the major subject areas, because most of the states have those subject areas, reading, language, arts, social studies, science, and math, as the subjects that you should focus on. One major thing you need to think about is graduation requirements and university requirements. Keep that in mind when you're choosing your curriculum and creating your assignments. Some universities accept credits, certain credits, some don't. So do your research. For things like elective, you can choose the traditional electives like foreign language, art, and math. But as a homeschool parent, you can include fun electives like finance, nature, life skill. Once again, check with your state requirements. A to Z homeschooling. This has great resources and all types of topics about homeschooling, including curriculum in different states, requirements for graduation, everything. And lastly, your 5 non-negotiable. Number 1, please make sure you assess your child. Diagnostic assessments are very important to see if your instruction is working. Number 2, collect data on your child's progress. You need to keep good notes because they may come in handy. It may be requested by your state or your district, and it can help you to do a better job of instructing your child. Number 3, work on that portfolio from the very beginning. Make sure that assignments are not just worksheets, include presentation projects, movement activities, inquiry, and writing. Number 4, if you're curious or if your state requires it, you should also administer standardized assessment. Check with your states to see what the requirement is, but a standardized assessment does give good information. And lastly, choose a set of grade level standards and set personal goals for your homeschool family. Thank you. Good luck on your journey.
All right. Thank you, Sandra, for that. That was very informative. I know that is a very common question for people who are just getting into the homeschooling journey, or maybe they're already in it, but they're pretty early in the game, is what curriculum should I use? What curriculum should I use? That is a very common question. And Sandra answered that beautifully. So I hope you guys were paying attention to that. All right, so we have completed part 1. We have now reached our intermission. So I did promise you guys a raffle. So as we go through our 5-minute intermission, I'm going to put the link to the raffle in the chat here. Let me just make sure it goes. There it is. All right. So I encourage you guys to sign up for the raffle. So if you're interested in seeing if you win, go to that link and fill out that form and sign up for the raffle as well. I'll also put it as a banner. Let me do that real quick. So it shows up at the bottom of your screen. There it is. All right, so scrolling below at the bottom of your screen is the link to our raffle. So I encourage you guys to take advantage of that. Maybe you'll win a prize. We'll see. So I did say this workshop will be interactive. So I encourage you to fill that out right now. And I also put it in the chat. So just go over there and click it. And let's see if you'll go home with a prize today. So while you guys are doing that, we are going to go through our intermission. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat right now. We will get to those questions at the end of the program. So we're going to go ahead with our intermission. right, and we're back. Oh, I got some light on my face. Okay. And we are back. I see the entries pouring in for the raffle. That's awesome. So hopefully we could call some names today. So there'll be another opportunity for you to participate in the raffle because there will be another intermission. All right, so let's jump to it. So we are now moving right along to speaker number 4. So speaker number 4 is Dr. Rochelle Matthews-Somerville. That's right, we have another Somerville with us. Let me tell you who she is. So Dr. Rochelle Matthews-Somerville, she will answer the question, how do I homeschool a child with special needs? So Dr. Somerville is a homeschooling mom of 6 with over 20 years of experience as a university professor, autism specialist, resource teacher, and educational consultant in both the private and public industry, supporting individuals and their families with unique learning and behavioral challenges. Currently, she applies her passions for teaching and serving in her roles as team leader of the Special Needs Educational Consultants at HSLDA, and she's the president of EFM Educational Consultants. Dr. Somerville has most enjoyed sharing her gifts with the homeschool community over the past 13 years as she has served as program director, community instructor, and assessment liaison. She genuinely enjoys providing encouragement and support to other homeschooling families, especially those educating learners with unique needs in all ways possible. Beautiful. All right, let me go ahead and bring her to the stage. Hi, Dr. Somerville. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Great. All right, so you're going to take this question from take it away. What am I trying to say? You're going to take this question from us. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton to you.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited. Every time I get a chance to talk about homeschooling learners with special needs, I get excited. There's just a little bit of chills that come up my spine because this is an area that I am definitely passionate about. There's always a little reservation when it comes to homeschooling, but there's a much bigger reservation that parents a lot of times have when it comes to homeschooling students with special needs, understandably. And so I always love pouring into my families when it comes to, taking on that responsibility of homeschooling students. As we saw through the pandemic, there was a lot that parents had to do to bring their kids home and they got that first glimpse of what it means to actually be hands-on and take on the responsibility of actually of teaching their kids at home. And the wonderful thing is that they got to get that feeling that they can do it. And you absolutely can homeschool your child with special needs. A lot of the reservation is that, when you're in the public school system, you have this village of people around you that just kind of seem to do it all. And then when you bring your kids with special needs home, you're just kind of left to do it yourself, and you can't do it. And so there's this pressure that the village is gone. And I tell people all the time, you were the head of the village anyway, and so absolutely you can do it. And so I am here as this mecca of support, and just basically to say that you can do it. As you know, the numbers of homeschoolers are growing steadily, and so are the number of homeschoolers with special needs. And so when we're talking about students with special needs, we're talking about those with language impairments, physical impairments, all the way from, those on the spectrum to intellectual disability, emotional disturbances. I mean, every disability on the spectrum. So there's not a specific group that I'm not speaking of, regardless of what your abling or disabling condition may be that your child may have. Those are the kids that you can bring home, and you can absolutely do this. Tamara talked about a lot of the legalities of where you need to start, and that was great information. And a lot of times when we start this process of homeschooling, we want to run and we want to start off with the paperwork. And I always tell people, especially if you have a learner with special needs, where you want to start is that village, right? Because when you have a special need learner, that's what you have with the public school system. You have what you feel is your village, that have taken over. You have your specialist, and then you have your your ancillary supports, you have your occupational therapist, your speech and language therapist, you have that village which you feel is supporting you, around the table. And then when you come home, that's the first thing that you lose. And so I say, right along the lines, when you start thinking about homeschooling, first think about building that village, right? Because you want to find those people who are going to be that source of support to you. And that may be, this may be one person, or this may be three people, right? But these are the poor people that can lead you to the resources that are going to help build that confidence in you. We seem to do a really, really great job providing our kids and finding those resources for our kids. If our kid needs speech, we are going to go to the ends of the world to make sure that our kid gets, the best speech and language pathologist. But when it comes to, doing for ourselves, especially as parents, we are the last to put on our life jackets, right? So what I'm telling you is, when you choose to take that step to homeschool, you need to put on your life jacket first, right? Because you may find that person that can say, hey, this is what you need to do first. You need to go ahead down to the Department of Ed, and this is how you navigate that paperwork. Okay, great. Okay, after you navigate that paperwork, what are we going to do to build that village back up? Okay, so we have to find these private services. Now, a lot of times people are like, okay, I can't homeschool because I can't afford all of those services that I get free at the public school system. Well, I am here to tell you that it's kind of like if you have a student who's graduated from college, the first thing you hear is, there's tons of money out there that's just not tapped into. You just got to find it. And it's like, well, where is it? It's like a needle in a haystack, right? Well, so is money for students with special needs. It's out there. But this is what building your village is all about. You need to find that person who can show you who or where to go, right? Who to tap into. You go to your pediatrician, or you go to, you need somebody to say, hey, you know what, if you go to a local university, they probably have, training programs where you can get these services almost very, very nominally. And, if your insurance doesn't cover it, you may be getting the same exact services for, a little bit of nothing, right? But you need that person as a part of your village to even access that, or even to know that's an option. So a lot of times the information piece of finding all of these resources is the most draining in terms of supporting your children at home. But again, you can do it. And so I always tell people, changing your mindset may be the hardest part of bringing your children home to start the process of homeschooling your students or your children with special needs. Changing your mindset may change your situation. I love that quote. Changing your mindset may change your situation. We all know the benefits, right? The benefits of homeschooling a child with special needs, the flexibility in scheduling, the taking control of the learning environment, controlling the social aspect of the positive interactions, being able to tailor to the strengths and needs of your specific child. Man, the benefits completely outweigh anything else, and as Gabrielle mentioned, I am one of the consultants at HSLDA, and we have an amazing team, So Tamara mentioned, join HSLDA. It may seem like one of those steps that many people, I always say that we are one of the best kept secrets because, we have your advocates there, the legal advocates for you, if anything happens or you just don't know the rules. And so you miss a rule and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're in trouble. Well, you don't have to worry about that if you're a member of HSLDA because, we are the longest standing organization that fights for the freedoms of homeschoolers, just so you can have that choice and that option and to know that you have somebody there supporting you. I represent the educational consultant team, which we have the pre-K through 8 team, we have the high school team and the special need team. I lead the special need team. But, put that in the back of your head that you need that village to make this happen. Also, if you are not a social media person and you are ready to take that dive into homeschooling, you may want to do that. Along this path, Facebook groups are absolutely amazing. To be able to go to a Facebook group and say, hey, I've got this learner with, let's say, a lot of executive functioning disorders, or I've got a learner with sensory issues, and I need to find a dentist that's right here local in my area. I can't tell you how many people will jump in and say, hey, you know what? I live such and such, is this close to you? So this is part of how you build your village, right? So don't forget about these social media groups. There's a lot of good things that can happen from these social media groups. We talked a little bit about the evaluation piece. The evaluation piece can be overwhelming, but with information, it can be very doable. Again, evaluations can be very, very expensive, and you always have the choice to go back to the public school system. By any chance that we always recommend that you don't, because you can get it done free, but free is not free, right? And so, of course, it's super expensive. It could cost you anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000. But guess what? There is so much untapped money. But what do you need to do? That's right. You need to tap into your village, because your village knows where the money is, right? But you have to put the right people in your village to be able to show you where that is. Educational consultants at HSLDA can definitely point you in those right directions. So make sure you're putting the right people in your village. Finding service providers to replace those that you received in public school. You got to put the right people in your village to show you where to go. Treatment options. A lot of time, the reservation of homeschooling is that you did have a whole mecca of service providers that were specialists, right? If you have a child with a specific learning need, visual impairment, there are specialty curriculums and things like that. Dyslexia, if you have a child with dyslexia or a teen with dyslexia, there are specialized treatments. Well, there are ways to bring other people into the house to support you in your efforts to homeschool your child. There's also grants. HSLDA has side grants just to support learners with special needs, to support these specialized programs. And there's also training for parents that you can tap into so that you can do it yourself. So don't feel that these barriers are barriers that you can't get through. Your village I'm going to keep falling back on your village. So I just want you to remember that homeschooling your child with special needs is as valuable as homeschooling any child, right? You are the experts in your child. A lot of times we are made to feel that we are not the experts because we don't have those certificates or those certifications that a lot of the public school teachers come with. But at the end, but you also have to remember that before we turn them over to the public school teachers, we taught them to get ready to learn, right? And so we then shared everything we knew as the experts before we turned them over. So we actually are the experts. And what the teachers do is they plant these seeds and these nuggets and then turn them back over us to do the work, right? And so you actually are the experts, and it's a partnership, and that's what you want. You just have to find ways to create new partnerships. And so you're going to build your village, and you're going to create new partnerships that allow you to successfully homeschool your students or your children with special needs, so that the ultimate goal is to help them thrive. So you're going to first make sure that you know your homeschool laws. You're going to build your village so that you know where the resources are. You're going to make sure you put on your life jacket, and then you're going to research curriculums and what those researches are in terms of finding those supports that your children had when they were in public school. And you're going to create this program at home that allows your children to thrive as much as they did when they were at school. And so it absolutely can work. And if you want to reach out to us, of course, we will very much be a part of your village at HSLDA.
All right, Dr. Somerville, thank you so much for that.
Absolutely welcome.
All right, let me put you backstage. All right, I hope you guys are catching. I hope you guys are taking notes or plan to refer to this later. Oh, this is a lot of gems that we're throwing at you. So I hope you guys are catching it. All right. Next up on the list, this one was a last minute substitution. She was able to jump right in. The previous speaker, fell ill, unfortunately, but, I am grateful that she's able to step right in. So our next speaker is Lanissa James, and she is also from the HSLDA. And let me tell you who she is. She will answer the question, how do homeschool children get into college or the military? So, a homeschooling mom and leader, Lanissa has a passion to serve the home educating community. She provides social, spiritual, academic, and supervisory support for families and local groups, and encourages and equips homeschool graduates to transition into colleges, careers, and vocational schools. As an HSLDA high school consultant, Lanissa loves speaking to parents to encourage and support their homeschooling with empathetic, engaging, and practical wisdom. She says, the joy of helping a family feel confident that they can homeschool is priceless. Lanissa earned her bachelor's in journalism from the University of Maryland, College Park. She is Myers-Briggs Type Indicator certified and is pursuing a master's degree in biblical studies. Lanissa is wife to Lorenzo, who also serves the homeschooling community through sports programs, photography services, and photography classes. She is the mother of 7 beautiful homeschool children, 5 girls and 2 boys, with ages ranging from toddler to young adult. Her hobbies include reading, traveling, photography, and kayaking. Wow, that is a mouthful there. All right, Tanya says she's definitely taking notes. You go ahead, Tanya. All right, so I'm going to bring Lanissa to the stage. Hi, Lanissa, how are you doing?
I'm great, Gabrielle. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so you're going to answer the question for us. I'm going to pass the baton to you now.
Thank you. So how do homeschoolers get into college and the military? That is a question. And are you anything like me? When you first started homeschooling, there are people who are nervous about it. Well, that was my mother. When I started homeschooling, I got the call that said, "You're homeschooling my grandchildren? Does that mean they're not going to college?" I will tell you, if we all had 5 cents for every time someone stopped us to think that our home education didn't mean extended education or military, it's a fallacy. And so today, I'm going to take you through just a short presentation of how you too can have a homeschooler who's college bound. Now, you heard Gabrielle introduce me, and she told you that I homeschool 7. Well, I want you to know that 3 of them are homeschool graduates and in college. One has already finished college. Another one is a junior in college, and another one is a freshman in college. That leaves me 4 more, and you're going to hear a little bit about it and a little bit about how you can get your homeschooler to college or the military. May I share my screen? I'm very excited about it, and I hope that you're ready to take some notes and to get really excited about all the things that you can possibly do. So let's take a look. All right. So the college admissions process, and it doesn't just begin with college, but it's also for military as well. I hope you guys can see my screen. This is the James party of 9. It's 9 of us. My husband was in law enforcement. The first time I started homeschooling, my daughter was in 4th grade when we first started. I know there's some pandemic schoolers out there who just started homeschooling, and all my husband wanted to know is this legal? Don't have the police at my door. And that's how our homeschool career started. And that same daughter not only homeschooled all the way through high school, but she did dual enrollment, was working on her associate degree and her high school diploma at the same time. She went on to finish college and did amazing. She transferred those credits over and went straight to her university. My second daughter, I told you, is a sophomore, a presidential scholar, doing amazing on the Dean's List every single semester. She's doing phenomenal. And my third daughter got over $250,000 in merit-based scholarships. And I'll talk a little bit about that. And then I have a junior this year, a high school junior. I have a high school freshman. And then I have a 6th grader and a kindergartner. I want to give you hope that you too can homeschool. This is our team at HSLDA. We're not alone, and we can be your guidance counselors. I think sometimes when we think about high school, we all know we're smarter than a 5th grader, but when we get to high school, we get a little nervous. And so at HSLDA, we're here to help you be the guidance counselor, or you can make us your guidance counselor because we're here. You met Dr. Rochelle Matthews-Somerville. She's part of our special needs team, but we also have our high school team. We also have our elementary, what we call pre-K to 8th grade years. So it's so much support for you, and that's exciting. So there are different types of plans when you think about college, and we're going to talk about the military as well, but there's a general plan. We can't forget about the 5 cores: English, math, science, history, foreign language. So there's your 5 cores. Everyone is not on the same track. When we think college, we can't forget about community college. Maybe a student wants to do community college instead of a 4-year college. So this is more of a general plan. And so I want you just to consider how many Englishes, how many maths, how many histories, how many sciences. Hey, you also have to consider what field area is your student going into. Is it STEM? Is it liberal arts? And you want to make sure that your schooling mirrors the program that they're going into. This is an average to a strong college plan. Notice that the 4 Englishes, the 4 maths, the history, sciences become a little bit more important because colleges and universities do want to see that students have taken the core classes well-rounded. And so it is never too late to go to the website of the college you're looking to go to and find out some of the requirements they have from high school. So many of the ladies shared, and it was so much great information. Understand that what the state requirement may not be enough to get you into college. So just be mindful of that. Which brings me to the strong college plan, highly selected universities that you're looking towards. And so they are looking for 4 Englishes, 4 maths, 4 histories, 4 sciences, of course, the sciences with lab, and at least 2 to 3 years in foreign language. So if you remember the 5 core, you know you're on a good track when it comes down to being college bound. And then, of course, our electives really should match the personalities of your student. So let's take a look at a vigorous college plan. Usually in a vigorous college program, you already have a homeschooler who is highly motivated. They're looking at selective colleges. They're probably already taking advanced courses such as honors, dual enrollment, AP. And so that is something that would normally lead a student right to a college university. But I want you to be mindful that the 5 core is still an important part of getting into college. So let's talk about a 4-year plan. 8th grade is a time that you can bring credits forward, but typically colleges and universities only want to see a math such as algebra, science such as maybe a physical science or a biology, or a high school foreign language. If you find yourself moving forward any other credits, perhaps you can consider moving your child up to the 9th grade instead. So this is just a snapshot. So you have your 8th grade credits that might move forward. We have 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. Well, here it is filled out for you. Let's take a look. So we have our Englishes. This is not necessarily a vigorous plan because the student didn't do a math in her 12th grade year, but this gives you an idea. We didn't name the maths here, but we give you an idea of kind of what it looks like. I think parents get overwhelmed when they think about homeschooling through high school. Can they get to college? Will they go in the military? And we get nervous about it. But if you just get a simple spreadsheet or call us at HSLDA, in fact, visit our website at www.hslda.org, you can get some of these high school plan sheets, and we have templates available. You know, we love to serve our members in a way where we make homeschooling possible. And then it goes on to that transcript. You know, everybody has to have a transcript. We're here to help you. Regardless if you're a member, you can check out our HSLDA transcript service. And I love it because it calculates the GPA, right? And it gives the simplicity of it. You can actually do your transcript on your cell phone. You got to love that. And it turns right into a PDF. Remember, keeping your subject orders the same. If you start with English in 9th grade, keep English going in 10th grade, 11th and 12th. And then if it's math next, then let math go next, and so on and so forth. And dual enrollment is always a great thing. And you want to list your dual enrollment classes as well. Dual enrollment classes usually go on a high school transcript for 1 credit, or what the credit would be for your state. I heard California on here. Things are different. I'm so blessed at HSLDA to serve high schoolers nationwide. And I realize there's some differences based on the state that you're in, but whatever you would deem as your single credit. And so that's just a sample of what's possible. And so when we look at college selection, we think about academics, you know, all kinds of perimeters, costs, and research. We have to do our homework, as well as when we're looking at military, we need a mentor. We have to think about the ASVAB test. We got to think about our physical, shape. And we also got to think about what it's like to talk to the recruiter. And we'll help you with that at HSLDA. And so that's one of the benefits of being a part of our program. So as a general timeline, when you think about 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, it's important to get yourself a strategy. I will tell you the fastest years of your life are the 4 years of high school. You don't know? Wait until you graduate one student, and then you graduate a second student. You'll look back and say, man, those years went fast. They're busy, they're packed, they're full of activities and learning and books and friends and this and that. You look up and it is over. So you're headed off to your 4-year college. Don't forget about those applications. We're right in the middle of the Common App season where important applications are due. And the timing will determine if you're going to get a scholarship, if you're going to get all kinds of what we call merit-based scholarships. So pay attention and make sure you meet those deadlines. Online application where you're going straight to the university or the Common App. At HSLDA will help you through all of this. Again, we talked about transcript, but the transcript is required. And again, the deadlines are crucial. Don't forget about studying the difference between regular enrollment, priority, early enrollment, early decision, or what we call rolling admissions. Each university will tell you how they admit new students. There are alternatives. Everybody's not going to college. Don't forget about our community college option. And then what's nice is that it can reduce costs when you think about it. And we have to talk about the military academies. There's academics. They're always interested in what your academics are, but there's also the nomination process. They also want many details about your course description. They don't want to just know that you did math. They want to get a feel for what curriculum you used. So always keep course descriptions if you know you're military bound. Let's not forget about testing. There's lots of places you can go to get a practice on the ASVAB test. It makes a difference, and it does determine what branch of service you'll go into. Extracurricular activities shows a lot of well-rounded students, and understand that there are a lot of strict deadlines. So if you're going to the military, we can support you. What about if you're going into fine arts majors, right? Performing arts, auditioning, maybe visual arts, portfolios, all of these become a big part to you getting into college. How about an athlete? Are you an athlete? You're part of the NCAA and you're going in Division I, Division II. Guess what? There are many homeschool who are Division I, Division II athletes. You can go right to the NCAA site, homeschool, and really begin to sign up to make sure that you're on the right track. The hardest part about the NCAA are those core course worksheets. Well, we'll help you with that. And also about how to communicate with all of the recruiting that ties with NCAA. And finally, don't forget about financial aid. Everybody wants a way so that they don't have to pay. And so you got to do your work. There's so many resources. There's sources that are local. There's lots of free money, scholarships, grants. There's also educational loans. They're federal, state, private, personal. There's so many ways to get into college. But the funny thing about college is that you never know where you're going to be or what you're going to get until you apply. So we get scared about it. And I find a lot of people won't put the application in to have an option. Give someone an option to give you a scholarship to help you through your college. Get the application in. And if you're a senior, the application is due. Don't forget about work study. Kids can work. They're campus jobs. They love hiring their own students. So don't forget about that. And let's not forget about our friend, the FAFSA. Guess what? It opens now October 1st. So it's already open, right? And for next year, it will open October 1st for the year of 2024. So literally, we have to be mindful of making sure we're paying attention to those college deadlines, okay? And also becoming familiar with some of the alphabet soup that's tied to college. Things like your SARS, your student aid report. You'll hear people say, I need your student aid report. You want to become familiar with some of this so that you can navigate potential scholarships. How about non-federal aid? You can go right to the College Board website. You can go to the website of the college. There's so many different aids available for you. It's all about preparation. Are you ready academically? Are you ready in terms of maturity, whether it be college or the military? Do you have the guidance you need? Do you have, like I love what Dr. Rochelle said, do you have your village in place for your launch of your high school student? Let us help you get in place and get ready. At HSLDA Online Academy, we have 45 courses that we can offer you. If you're looking for courses that have the vigor and pace that puts you on a college track, please visit us. We have courses available for you. There are 45 of them in many topics. And for our AP courses, because we also offer AP courses, our homeschoolers are scoring above average. And so we love that. We are soaring above what the global average is. And that's what's wonderful about homeschoolers. This is a discount code, and I know some of you are going to be watching on video later, but if you decide to join us, here's a $30 discount for you to participate in our classes at the HSLDA Online Academy. So as I close, there are resources available to you, how to develop a high school plan, simplifying your record keeping. The theme for us at HSLDA in the consultant services is knowledge, nurturing, and networking. We're here for you. We're excited to participate today. We can help you with a customized plan. We have our HSLDA transcript service. We also do transcript reviews out of our office. We'll take a look at your document. We also have diplomas that you can purchase right from our website. Remember, we can be your guidance counselors. You are not alone. I want to thank you so much for the opportunity. And I want to remind you that HSLDA provides educational consultants, resources that make homeschooling possible, legal answers and representation, a lobby and presence, a community of homeschoolers. Most importantly, we help homeschoolers save time and money. And would you believe that HSLDA is known as a homeschool advocates? And you know what? Our theme is any question, anytime, anything homeschooling. Members get trusted resources for just 35 cents a day. So visit our website, and thank you so much for this opportunity to share with you. And I'll be hanging around at the end to make sure that I answer any of your questions you may have about homeschooling high school or regarding HSLDA at all. So we're just really, really excited to be here today. So thank you so much for this opportunity to share.
Thank you, Lanissa. Thank you so much for that. That was awesome. I hope you guys picked that up. All right. I see the comments are coming in. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I hope you guys captured all of that. This will be available on the replay if you missed it. But if you're watching with us in real time right now, I hope you guys pick that up. I hope you guys are taking notes. All right. We have made it to our final speaker for today. So our final speaker for today, her name is Jan 6th, and she was at our last event. But let me just remind you about who she is. So our final speaker for today is Jan 6th. She will answer the question, what are some teaching strategies I can use? Have you tried to explain an assignment to your child only to find that your explanation wasn't understood? Did you lose your child's attention? Did both of you walk away frustrated? Were your child's needs still not met? Here comes our speaker, Jan 6th. On her website, jstutor.com, she has created resources that help both parents and students. This includes over 1,200 targeted educational videos for ages preschool through 12th grade in a variety of academic subjects. Parents learn how to teach basic foundational concepts calmly and smoothly while helping with schoolwork. Her philosophy? Homeschoolers learn best with a well-organized curriculum that pairs strategy with efficiency. And finally, Jan has been a teacher for over 45 years. Fabulous. All right, I'm going to bring her to the stage. Hi, Jan. How are you doing today?
Hi. I'm fine, Gabrielle. Nice to be here.
Great. All right. So you're going to answer the question, what are some teaching strategies I can use? All right, take it away.
Teaching strategies. Your head is probably exploding at this point from all of the paperwork that's demanded of you. But this is really the fun part where you actually get to interact with your child. I'm sure you've heard the expression, you need to study harder. Well, I think it's probably better to study smarter. So the actual tools of learning are like the tools that you have maybe in a garage or your toolbox. You have a hammer, you have a screwdriver, but what is their purpose? In order to use that tool properly, you would need to understand what the purpose of that tool is and what jobs that could actually do. And it's very similar, I think, to a strategy of learning, because what we're doing here is understanding our basic tools of learning. For example, for speech, reading, spelling, we would need to understand our phonics, the alphabet letters. Knowing how to write the letters is a tool. The parts of speech to have a complete sentence, that's a tool of learning. In math, it would be the basic math facts, the names of the basic shapes. And for a preschooler, just learning the continuity of just the numbers of themselves, to be able to count in order and understand what they mean. So I have actually probably triaged in my teaching most of my career. I did classroom teaching at the beginning, and then through various moves that we made as family, I started to tutor instead of going back into the school itself. So I've triaged a lot of children who have actually fallen behind. And now we certainly, the couple of years with COVID, that the children have fallen behind substantially in mass. So some of the techniques that I want to show you would be very helpful for those children, and also calm you that you are able to do this teaching with your homeschooling students, even if they've fallen behind in some of their disciplines. The students that I've seen I get a small amount of time with them. Sometimes it's as little as a half an hour to 45 minutes. And I've seen that this one-on-one with the basic pivotal skills of learning, the foundational skills, have been able to pull that student back to be on par. In homeschooling, we don't think of it as being behind a grade level. Children are able to learn at their own pace, and it's very powerful. So let me show you some of the ways that I've done this. For example, when we have multiplication, the multiplication and division tables are a pivotal skill. Kids have to know the facts. Here's probably a time test you would give your child if you were doing addition, but I have them for each of the facts. I'll show you the one for the multiplication. These are easy to do on a sheet of paper, and they could be, you could give this test each day. Let me get it straight here. So maybe just taken from a copy machine, and a child could sit down and do 3 minutes with this. As you learn the facts, the child would do the ones that he or she would know. Perhaps you would start with the doubles on this. So the complete sheet wouldn't have to be done at once. They would just be looking for their doubles and going from there. And as you fold in more and more of the facts, eventually the whole entire sheet can be done. So now, okay, we've taken the facts, we've learned those. Now let's graduate into the story problem. In a story problem, a child needs to understand what to do with the numbers that they find. And the words in the story problem actually do give a clue as to the operation, whether it be add, subtract, multiply, or divide. But the study smarter part of this is realizing that the vocabulary doesn't always just say multiply. Sometimes the verbiage in the story problem itself gives something like product or times. Well, those would be pretty easy, but perhaps a word like twice or triple gives us an actual number and an operation all at once. Here we have each group's rows and sets are multiplication words, but they also are division in division problems. So this thinking process that I'm talking about is understanding that the vocabulary could be either the multiplication or division, but then the child would have to be thinking about, what am I expecting as an answer? is the answer that I would need to be larger than the numbers that I'm starting with? That would tend to give you the clue that these shared clues would be a multiplication application. And on the flip side, if your each rows, groups, or sets was signifying a smaller answer, that would be the division idea. Again, the tool of division works to a smaller answer. The tool of multiplication works to a larger answer. And in the division part 2, things like separate fairly and separate equally, we don't always put that together as that's division. But the idea of division is to group in sets or groups where the same number is in each of that. Everybody gets the same amount of candy in their treat bags at a birthday party. And that's what we fold in when we hear and when we read those problems. One of the things in math, I'll stay on math for one more time, is the place value houses that have been very helpful as I've taught. The columns and place value is very important for most math, but we mostly just are in house 1 and 2, and possibly the decimal point here I have as my dot, maybe a couple of rows on the other side. That's where most of our math happens in our school years. But you can see that the math goes, the columns go to infinity. But that's a very hard concept for a younger child. But the older kids then will start learning about the powers, and the powers of 10 actually are the place values from these houses that I've done, these townhouses the way I've explained it to kids. So we now have upped our understanding to powers of 10. Similarly, though, in science, particularly, I don't know if you can see this chart. This one that I've done has actually gone very, very far with the positive and negative exponents, and they are named pico and nano, micro, and then we go higher with the gigabyte and a terabyte. Those are all place value that kids probably have heard of with the advent of the computer. Divisibility is taught in school. Here's a chart that I've made that shows the numbers that are divisible by 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so forth. But after all of these rules get into a child's head, then I've learned that I can teach it this way. There's a thinking process. I'm always hoping that I can get my students to understand that there is a more efficient way to organize their thoughts to get to the answer. And with that, it's I think a homeschooling parent would really be appreciative of making sure that their child has the executive functioning that would be organizational and study skills. Something like this, that would be the trigonometry, can easily be written into a notebook, and the child could access this information at will for doing the problems. So note-taking is a very, very important piece of a peaceful homeschooling event. Children that are behind academically that I've tutored from the schools benefited greatly when I taught note-taking skills. We also learn through our senses. hearing and sight and smell and taste. But any time that you can get a manipulative and your child can actually work with a prop is going to be a good jump to learning. Here I've done a board where they were trying to understand and learn the countries of Central America. So I did a map, and they can do this. You have to teach an art project anyway. Have them do this for art. Make a map of the Central America, and then these are individual cards that just have the country's name on them. If you spread them around on a flat surface, you're going to be able to reconstruct that map of Central America. This is a very good learning application. And then when it comes to the test time, you're going to be, this map has nothing written in it, but most times on a standardized test or a test at a younger age, they'll put numbers in this. They'll kind of scatter them around, and then the child would have to identify where the country was. Very easy to do after they've studied like this. Come over here for a moment to Scully, my skeleton made out of paper plates, actually. This one was labeled, but the learning part of it would be taking the actual body parts that are here in this bag, giving those to the child. Part of the studying would be to pin on or to identify where the bones of the body would be. It's just whatever you can think of that would get a manipulative involved would be helpful. Teaching reading and what to look for in a story itself would probably be a good idea to use the story plot line, where you can see the actual skeleton of the story. This helps a person identify the different phases of the story, where we have rising and falling action here. And after they understand that the story has a skeleton type outline to it, they can follow when the characters are introduced, and the setting is usually at the beginning, and then there's some event that kicks off the problem for the character. And in these ups and downs of this plot line, the character is trying to work through the problem until finally it's solved. It's over on this side, and the story is over. Understanding this idea when you're reading is just as important to take it to the next step would be when you're creating the story. If a child understands that they can follow this plot line, the story more easily comes out of them. The multiplication tables, a lot of books, and you'll find workbooks and such that have this very busy chart on it. I've eliminated most of that clutter. This is really all you need for teaching the multiplication tables. I've gone over it step by step in one of the books that I wrote, Teach Your Child to Learn: A Parent's Guide. Simple and tested techniques that work. Actually, it's this one. I'll show it to you. The chart is in here, and the explanation of how you actually teach the multiplication tables, in what order you do it. It's more efficient. What else can I show you here? There are, let's see, if you're going to be working with a preschooler, perhaps you're into teaching them how to read a clock. I have found that it's much easier to teach. Oh my gosh, I've had Okay, well, we'll just put this aside. I'll hold it. That's just live podcasts. If you're teaching a child how to read the clock, it's a lot easier to start out with the hours and the half hours. And I've used these manipulative clocks that you can actually move. As long as before you teach some of the other ones that are the other times that are harder. In all these cases, you want to give your child the basics, the basic tools for learning. They are the ones that will build into the harder concepts as you go along. Okay, what else? As long as we are on telling time, if you find that your child is able to move on to the next concept, introduce perhaps AM and PM to him. And I always suggest that when you're using telling time, that you use the analog clock and the digital at the same time. That way, your child is going to be learning both of them, because the digital clocks are very you see them a lot in life at this point. You don't see the analog clock as much, but still it's used. I think I've maybe used my 10 minutes talking about this. There's so many other curriculum-based ideas that you could do, but if you can use the basic pivotal tools of learning, you will set yourself up for success as your child's teacher, and you will set up your child for more difficult concepts.
All right, Jan, thank you so much. That was awesome. I hope you guys are paying attention. She gave you some great teaching strategies. If you're homeschooling, there's so many different resources around your home that you can use to teach your child, right? So it's all about using the resources that we have. And she just gave you a lot of great resources with all of her fun charts. So I hope you guys were paying attention to that. All right, so we have now reached our second intermission. So I'm going to remind you guys again about the raffle. So if you did not have a chance to sign up for the raffle, do so now. The link is on your screen, and I will also do a scrolling marquee as well. So I encourage you guys to sign up for the raffle. It's also in the chat. I'll just put that in the chat one more time, so in case you guys came on later on. So I encourage you guys to sign up for the raffle. It's free and you get some free goodies. So I encourage you to sign up for that. All right, so we are going to go into our second intermission now, and then we will get to the fun part. now the raffle is now closed. Okay, so let's see who the winners of our raffle are. Let me just refresh this. Okay, so let me tell you what is in the raffle. So we're going to start off with this here. This book is what Jan held up earlier. It is a free copy of her book, Teach Your Child to Learn, A Parent's Guide. So it's a free copy here. You're getting that in the raffle. And also from Jan, she has a little coupon here. Just trying to make sure you don't see any special codes on it, so none of you can take it. But Teach Your Child to Learn, so it's a 30-minute free consultation that she is giving to you there. All right. And also, again, I'm trying to hide any special codes so y'all don't see it. It's a 15% off coupon of 6 hours of tutoring from us, A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. And you get a beautiful calendar for 2023, Motivations 2022, also from us, A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. So, and among some other stuff as well. So that is the raffle for today. And the winners of the raffle are, so I said there will be 4. So the winners are, forgive me if I say your name wrong, Chris Henna M from New York. So New York in the house. All right. So Chris Henna M from New York. She is one of our winners. Congratulations. The next winner is Tanya M from Chicago. Hey, Tanya. Congratulations. You won. All right. The next one is Terica M from Jacksonville, North Carolina. Awesome. North Carolina in the house. And our final winner is Anna C from Rhode Island. So congratulations, you guys. I'll be contacting you to get your information so I can send you your prize. All right, Tanya's excited. You're one of our winners, Tanya. All right, so we're just going to jump right into the Q&A. So some of our speakers had to leave. That is fine. So we're just going to put them, I'm going to bring everybody to the stage. Okay, you guys. And we're going to go ahead with our Q&A. So please put your questions in the chat. So we're just going to run through these, and all of you guys can jump in like double dutch. I don't know if you guys remember double dutch. Just jump on in. Okay. So this question here is from earlier. Okay. This one is from Sarah. My daughter has an IEP/ESE. Is there resources for homeschooling families with that? Anyone can answer.
Yeah, of course, there are tons of resources. It depends on what specifically you're looking for, though. Like I said, there are resources all over the place. I mean, I don't even. It depends on what specific resources you're looking for. Are you looking to connect socially? Are you looking for specific resources in terms of supporting finding service providers? Like, for example, are you looking to bring somebody into the house to help you with curriculum? Are you looking for grants to support buying specific curriculum? So absolutely, resounding yes. But you have to be specific. There are also resources specific to specific disabilities. So for example, if your child has autism, the Autism Society of America may have specific grants for that specific population. So each of the disability organizations have grants that are specific to the different disabilities. So if you go to each one of those organizations, you can also apply for grants. So yes, that's the short answer.
Anyone else want to chime in there? Okay, awesome. All right, Anna Cruz. All right, she wrote a big one. She said, one of our raffle winners. She said, I'm looking into homeschooling. Both my 2 children, 6th grade and 10th grade, need some guidance and recommendations. They both have an IEP for math. With everything that has changed in the education system and after the pandemic, things are just not working for my family. I guess that's more of a statement. You guys have any words or any guidance, any words of wisdom you want to give to her?
I can jump in on this one. Your child doesn't need to be behind. There are the techniques that I was talking about that are pivotal skills, foundational. Probably you might need to go back maybe a couple of grade levels for a very short period of time and catch up on some of those basics. But you will find that the what you've learned at an earlier age builds on what you're getting now. The disciplines that are at more at whatever the age level, and you will find that the child will be caught up. I worked with a child who actually had cancer. He lost 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. He was too sick to do any of those grades. So when I picked him up, this was from one of the school districts where I was working at the time. I worked with that child for 1 year, and he graduated with his class. So it is not a down and out. Don't feel that way at all. This is very savable.
Can I just chime into that whole, let me just say really quick, the whole concept of being behind is a public school mentality, because the idea of moving kids together is the system that you have to move them together to be successful. So when we homeschool, we are not locked into that system. We're not locked into that box. As a matter of fact, when we pull our kids out, the goal is to find out where they are. And so when you find out where they are, the goal is to move them forward, regardless of where they are. So when you find out where they are, your goal is to move them forward. And when you move them forward, they are where they are. They are genuinely where they're supposed to be. So there may be some holes and gaps because they have been moved within the system that they deem successful. And so they have to keep up to a system that's not genuinely paced to their learning needs and styles and preferences. But when they get into the system that is designed for them, it's very, very different. I mean, now it is tailored to what they need, and you're going to catch those holes and gaps. They may go through things that are faster than they would in the traditional public system. And if you need to slow down and make sure that they master things in certain chapters of specifically a math book, then you slow down in this one, and then they may have already got the next chapter. So you go through that one. And so the pacing is what is one of the, I think for me particularly, is one of the most freeing things about being able to homeschool my kids. They are all so different, but the fact that I can move at their pace is what allows me to genuinely tailor their curriculum. So the idea of being behind is not even an issue when you homeschool.
Yeah. I also want to add, one of the things, I have 2 kids, and they're 5 years apart. The oldest is a girl, and she, did things, on time, did what she needed to do. She was good at sitting at the table and doing her work. And then came my son, who I realized very quickly he was actually learning when I wasn't intending to teach him. And when we started with him, when he officially started school, particularly with math, one of the things I realized was his issue wasn't math. It was the fact that he had difficulty writing. And so math took a long time, and he therefore didn't like to do math. And so I ended up actually switching to do his math orally, and I became his scribe. And then, but he had to explain every step to me. He's now really good at mental math, and we're still working on his penmanship. So sometimes it's not a math issue, maybe a different issue that's affecting math, if that makes sense.
In fact, your child might be able to give you the pointers. I always ask my students, where are you confused? At what point? It's usually not across the board. It's usually on some specific item that they get trapped. And what I need to do is make them feel comfortable that I'm not going to be, upset about hearing where the problem is, or that they're comfortable enough that they could admit it to me. And that is, of course, builds rapport. That's a rapport building step. But you probably already have rapport. They're your child. They're your children. So after that, I say to the child, if you can tell me where you're having the difficulties, I can teach it. I can help you specifically, and then I don't have to bore you with going back too far. So you might just ask him straight out.
Yeah, I love what all of you guys said. I just pulled a piece out of everyone, and I connect with Miss Somerville when you mentioned about the space in between. My first set of children were 4 years apart, and I know the kind of fear you get into where you kind of didn't do what you needed to do with that 10th grader, but then you have the 6th grader coming behind, And it's just it's a big toss up. And I really say, sit down and have some relationship building time. You almost need to separate them, because the 10th grader has some fear along with the parent, right? That, man, you're halfway through high school now, and we're struggling here. And I know what that's like. And so being able to sit down and get a vision for where your high school student sees themselves at the end, and they may not know it all. I love working with different personalities and being able to work through that in a quiet space, because every kid is not college bound. So, and by 10th grade, you can start exposing them. My son, who he is college bound, but he loves working with his hands. And so I, helped him love his education by doing a construction management, and he's restoring his grandmother's property, and, he's building decks and, putting in new floors, and he just loves it. And so I find that opened him up. And whereas he thought he wasn't good at math, he found himself doing a whole lot of carpentry math and said, Mom, I'm better than math than I thought. I said, hey, you got to measure twice and cut once. So it's okay to kind of separate those two and build the relationship separate, because their stories are not going to be the exact same. And as you capture what's going on with your older student, it'll give you confidence to work with the younger one, because somebody's about to be done in 2 years, and that can be stressful too. So get a hold of what's going on in the front, and then it'll be easier when you get with the 6th grader. So sometimes having a lot of children, it's hard when you look at them as a total, right? You get nervous, it's overwhelming, you're outnumbered really. And then if you pull them aside, you can get a chance to work on it. But the relationship is so important, and let it be a team effort. So thank you. You guys all said wonderful things.
Awesome. So then I have my question then is, if there's really left back as a public school mentality, so is there an age where we should graduate our kids? Like, I know like the goal is to graduate them at 18, 19, definitely by 21, right? So does that apply to homeschool at all? Or can you graduate your kids at 24, 25? Or
Well, in terms of graduation, you have to, of course, every state has different laws. And of course, it depends on if you have special needs, if they're documented. That's Dr. Rochelle's area. But what I always say about graduation is that we really have to pay attention to the plan we have in place. A lot of times the states don't require some of the things that we as parents are requiring for our kid in terms of graduation. People call us all the time at HSLDA and they say, my son never finished the book. I said, well, your son didn't have to finish the book. Hey, even in school, they don't even have books. Sometimes they have dittos, okay? Mm-hmm. So sometimes we put the kind of pressure towards graduation that's not necessary. And so, things that don't get finished during the school year, I just make it, summer bridge work. And it's okay. I think sometimes because we purchase curriculum, we seem to think that their graduation is tied to the it, or whatever that it is. I don't even know what it is. And so, we love working with students and parents, trying to help them give a class to what they're doing, because kids are always learning. Never underestimate the fact that kids are not always learning. They're always learning. We had a situation in our family where both my in-laws passed at the same time. And there was times we just needed to hug. We were sitting around, in the outward, it might've seemed like we were doing nothing, but we really were spending some quality time that we needed. And the kids learned a whole lot. They learned a lot about, estate planning and things that they needed to do and building a legacy. I will tell you they're stronger today because I leaned away from what I call traditional education, pen and paper, in that season for them to be much stronger today. So we have to be careful as to what we're setting as the requirement to the kid being done. And there's something magical about a piece of paper, especially for high school students, where you just say, this is going to count as your science. We're doing biology on the beach, and this is your science. We're going to check this off. This is going to be your math. We've started algebra, and you needed to partially do pre-algebra in order to get into algebra, and that's okay that we've gone 3/4 through. We're going to pick up algebra 2 in the year after, and before we do algebra 2, we'll come back to where you stopped in algebra 1 as we do in algebra 2. So be careful of the rules that we set on ourselves about when a kid is done. So sometimes they need to be done because they're at an age where they want to be done, and parents holding them back doesn't make it better, it makes it worse. So it's a case-by-case basis. And so that's why you need a counselor, so you can talk through what it is that makes you feel like they're not done. And you'd be surprised. It's simple things.
Also, you need to remind your child that you're raising an adult, not a
Yes.
kid,
Yes.
and that the goal here is lifelong learning.
Yes.
Fabulous.
That's right.
Thank
And
you.
it doesn't end. Yeah, that's great. I love this.
Any other thoughts? Oh,
I want to reiterate. I don't remember who said it. They talked about like changing. When you change your mindset, you change your future. And I think one of the things coming into homeschooling we've got to be mindful of is the mindset we're bringing in from from I'll say traditional school,
Yeah.
and so we're trying to fit homeschooling into what we already know about school, and we're just trying to do it at home, and it's really not the same thing. And so we've got to really, there's a term in the homeschooling community called deschooling. We've really got to kind of uncouple what school looks like, and recognizing that we are educating our children at home. We're not schooling them at home. We are educating them at home. And those two things are not the same.
I have a lot of respect for a homeschooling parent because they put a lot of time and effort and of themselves into this activity. Believe me, it isn't wasted. It's just an amazing amount of care.
all right. Any other thoughts, comments? All right, I think we got it. All right, Anna, you got a mouthful there. All right. Okay. Bethany, we referenced it earlier. You make it sound so simple. You were talking about the paperwork. New York State, thank you for making it seem doable.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess just to add to that, the letter of intent is important for homeschooling. So, I mean, is the letter of intent necessary? Can you just pull your kid out of school and just not do school? So,
If your
is
state
there?
requires it, you have to submit it. That's
Yeah.
non-negotiable. If they require it, you've got to submit it.
Yeah, and we don't want to minimize the fact that homeschooling is not easy. So we don't want to minimize that. Well, I think the theme is that it is doable, right? I mean, I'm 15 years in, and I'm not about to say that homeschooling is easy. I have 6 very different type of learners, and it hasn't become easier. What has become easier is the grace that I've given myself. I think that has been different. Each year it becomes a little bit different for me as the person homeschooling, because I understand a little bit more what it takes to successfully homeschool all the way through college. My oldest, I graduated in 2021. He is successfully navigating college. It was not an easy journey, and it's not as I continue to homeschool the last 5, but it is doable. It is. There are ways to so I love the fact that that Tamara was giving all of this wonderful advice of how to streamline these processes. But trust and believe, it's not easy for the new homeschooler coming in. It's a lot of work. But I don't want you to mistake the natural anxieties and being overwhelmed for not feeling and believing that it's possible, because it is. But when you hit those roads where you're overwhelmed, it's not a sign that you need to throw in the towel, that you can't do it. We all go through it, and we all have those days. And some days you just need to all gather your kids and go out for ice cream.
Yeah.
But there's another part to this too. As a homeschooling parent, you probably homeschool twice or 3 times, maybe. In your cases, some cases it's you have 6 children, and so you're going through it 6 times. During my career, I've literally tutored hundreds of children over the decades that I've done this. So you get to know that there's certain ways to say it to a child, or certain ways to present that's more fruitful than another. And that's why I showed you all the charts and graphs and all that stuff that I've done. That was a gradual learning curve for me as a teacher. So as a homeschooling parent, I encourage you to take the experience that someone has already done and is offering to you as a way of not having to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, what I hope that parents walk away with is that you've got a lot on your plate when it comes to homeschooling. Let's not make the paperwork like this enormous monster to tackle. The paperwork can be simple. We've got enough formats to just copy, fill it in, and let's get to the nitty-gritty of actually educating our kids.
Yes.
Absolutely. You want to jump in, Lanissa?
You can call us at HSLDA. We have attorneys. I think sometime when you have an attorney, it takes away the fear. Okay. I'm sorry. That's just what it is. So we have an amazing group of attorneys at HSLDA. So, my solution to this is join HSLDA. We'll walk you through. We have templates and everything so that you can file it and walk away knowing that you have the backing you need should your paperwork come back different, especially in New York. You got to love it. By the way, I'm from New Jersey, so I appreciate my New Yorkers.
All right.
You see how things are pretty easy in New Jersey, though, right?
So I've heard. All right. And again, can you join HSLDA in any states?
Absolutely. If you just go to our website, hslda.org, hslda/join, you can just sign right up. It's simple process. You can, pay for the year or you can do it monthly. So I love it because it's very inexpensive considering what you need and understanding that we have several services. So you have our attorney services where everybody needs that legal support, right? That confidence, so you don't have to worry. But we also have our educational services, which is amazing, for all age groups. And, so it's there for you not to worry because anything homeschooling we can support you with. And of course, we have group services. So if you're watching and you're HSLDA leader, Darren Jones, he runs that department. So we have support for for homeschool leaders, and you don't have to be a member. So if you're a homeschool leader out there and you're trying to lead other homeschoolers and you need support, hey, you don't have to do it alone. Contact us and we'll help you along the way because ultimately we're all in this together.
Fabulous. All right, let's jump on down here. All right, this one's from Tanya, our raffle winner. She says, I'm running into more and more young people who never properly learned how to look at a clock and tell time, can't recite months of the year consecutively, or can't write the date on a piece of paper because of cell phones. She said that in caps. Has anyone else encountered this? I guess, Jan, that came up as you were talking.
I think telling time is a pivotal skill. It's a foundational skill. You should expose your child to it. Yes.
Yeah. You also need to set some what we call non-digital zones. I know there are lots of resources out here to help get a hold of social media and cell phones and the distractions that some older people just never had these issues. And some of our kids are getting entrenched in it. So we really have to set what I call non-digital zones. I teach a bunch of students on Monday and Wednesday. And one of the things I say is that, hey, we're in a non-digital zone for the time that we're together. And you will be surprised how many kids who have cell phones struggle with it. And it's important to get a hold of it because then you become that adult that just, right? Yeah. Right. So, so setting perimeters and just, parameters so that you control it and it does not control you. And I talk to that. And also reminding kids that they're not their phones, mom and dad are paying for the bill and they make the kids think that these are their phones. And so when my kids act like that, we give them the cell phone bill. And they're like, what? No way, right? And so they stop that possession. I was like, if it's yours, then here you go. Here's the bill. So when I say turn it off or I'm collecting them or whatever it is, then and so we really need to take time to parent in that way. And unfortunately, because of the time period we live in, it's a part of parenting now. And there's movies out there, The Social Dilemma on Netflix, and all kinds of things that can help walk you through the conversation. Like I tell my son, I'm not mad with you. You've not done anything wrong. You just need to take a pause. And it's not a bad thing. Everybody you're looking for will be there when you get there,
And Tanya, if you really want to mess with your child, do an analog clock with the Roman numerals on it.
Oh, yeah.
Or how about throw in the military clock?
There you go.
Well, and then just other simple things like put a physical calendar in the house.
Yes.
Give them an actual analog watch, not this digital one.
Right.
Particularly younger kids. So I think there sometimes we just overlook some of the simple things that are necessary, like the clocks. There's literally a clock in every room in our house. With the clock hands, you've got to be able to tell time. The only other than our devices, the only other digital clock is the microwave and the stove. But if you're not in those two, if you're not in the kitchen, you need to tell time. You've got to look at the wall.
All
Or
right.
when they want to go someplace, they'll learn how to tell time. You watch. All of a sudden, they got skills. They got to go someplace. Everybody can keep their time clock. I was like, oh, so you can tell time. You do know how to manage your time because you have someplace to go.
All right. All right. All right. Let's see. Okay, can jump another one from Tanya here. I have a parent who has not really formally schooled her 2 children ever, so they are way behind. I will have that discussion with her about going through the process to make homeschooling official. I thought her kids had learning disabilities, but they were just never taught the basics. Thoughts on this type of situation?
Well, first of all, we don't know how old the children are, and the second thing is that I always say it's really, really hard not to learn. Okay, so what I read in this is that she was not formally taught with curriculums that come from books. Okay, if you think about it, how much do we learn that is not from a curriculum? You learn a whole lot of life skills that do not come from books, and the reality is that the skills that we learn to be leaders and to be successful in life typically are not necessarily tied to the content. So when you do get into some professions and when you get into a higher level of education, you do talk about content. But if we're talking about young kids in the very, very early years, you're talking about life skills. You're talking about tying shoes. We're talking about grooming practices. We're talking about being respectful. We're talking about behavioral things. So you really have to process this and figure out what age we're talking about. Are we talking about kindergarten and first grade and not having formal schooling in books?
5th and 6th graders.
5th and 6th. Okay, so it's time to open a couple books. It's time. It may be time to open some books, but again, there's still a lot of things that you can do. I'm gonna. For my kids, I have younger ones, and yep, we do have curriculums, but I'm going to tell you the skills that stick most are when we pull out games. And my house is full of games. We have all kinds of games that we do electronically. We'll pull out a Kahoot game that I can do any subject on. We'll pull out all kinds of electronic games, Scrabble. We have math games. Those things will stick more so than if I pull out a curriculum and I start doing a whole bunch of math skills. I got one sleeping, I'm getting one's out the room, one has to go to the bathroom 15 times. So for me, it's not a deal breaker that they have not had necessarily formal curriculum. Now, there still has to be some structure. And so I would have to process that a little bit in terms of what a day looks like. But to me, it's not a deal breaker. I would have to process that a little bit more with that parent, because there are ways to successfully school a kid without necessarily going through a curriculum like we traditionally think of the traditional school system. And you can do it successfully.
Yeah.
There's a podcast, Institute for Excellence in Writing, IEW, and their writing curriculum. And on the first 4 episodes of their podcast, they give these amazing I'm gonna use the word testimony because I can't think of another word right now. of seemingly, this is in relation to reading in particular, particularly boys who were so far behind in reading. I'm talking about 8th grade, high school, and they weren't on level when it came to reading. And then all of a sudden it just switched. And these same boys today are book publishers, best-selling New York Times authors. And so if we can pull away a little bit of, we talked about a little bit already, of this idea that they're behind. They may not be where their peers are, but kids kids love learning. They may not love the way they're being instructed, but they do love learning. Lana Sear mentioned, when her kids, having her sons do construction work. We've got to just look. And Jan mentioned the different ways that she helps kids, gain different skills. There's just so many ways to teach a child that don't require a book, and there's so many ways to learn. And I'm so forever grateful for just the lessons of watching my son pick up on lessons I was teaching my daughter. And he would, from across the room, yell out an answer to a question I never asked him. And so the desire is for them to be like the adults they see. And so if that requires reading, they're going to want to learn to read. If that requires math, they're going to want to learn to do that. As soon as they have money and they've got to get change back, they want to learn how to count. As soon as you should, like Alana Sear mentioned, if they got someplace to go, they'll learn. You've got to give them real time, real life reasons to want to pursue something.
Motivation.
It
is motivation.
Adults, they want the independence and the freedom.
And middle school is hard. Middle school is hard. It doesn't matter, especially for boys. That motivation is key. My son, I'll open a curriculum all day long when it comes to math. I mean, it's an automatic zone out. Math, it's like chasing him around. But if I pull out, first of all, if I don't call his name and I work with somebody else, he's right there. He's my shadow. As long as I don't say his name in math in a sentence, he's right there. But if I pull out a game, or if I pull out something and I'm like, okay, well, you don't want to do this because it's math, he is right there proving me wrong. And he's sharp. Math is his thing. He just has natural gifts, but he does not want to see a math book. Right at this point, we're doing algebra. And if I can figure out how to teach it to him without pulling out a book, he's got it. I can't tell you. He keeps me on my toes. This is how I spend most of my day, figuring out how to teach these math algebra concepts without pulling out this book. I could do videos, Generation Genius videos all day long. As long as I don't say, here, now do it on paper, we're good.
It's actually all algebra. It has been since first grade. Whenever they said 2 plus box is 7,
Right.
They were doing algebra.
Absolutely. You're right.
All right. So Tanya, I saw you put up a couple more comments. I think your situation is very unique, and I encourage you to reach out to HSLDA to address that. But to that point, so now I'm wondering as well, like when it comes to homeschooling instruction, like I know we don't want to think about left back, but do you have to meet certain developmental markers? Like is there an expectation for high school age? Is there an expectation for middle school age? Is there an expectation for high school age? Or is it just the Wild West and you can do whatever you want? I guess that's where I'm a little confused at. Like, are there still milestones you have to reach, or is it just do as you please?
Some states do require it. Some states have annual testing where you have to reach benchmarks, and other states have no requirements.
And I think as parents, we put in a much harder expectation, a much higher expectation on what we expect of our kids. In New York, in particular, we have to show a year of progress. Not that necessarily has to be on the same grade level. So if your child's in 5th grade and started off with their first assessment showed they're only in 3rd grade reading, let's say, you've got to show over the course of this last year, you've at least moved up to 3.5, 4th grade. There is progress, but there isn't a specified amount like you have to jump to be on grade level.
Yeah. It depends on the state. It depends on the goal. I think you have to begin with the end in mind, that these children do become young adults, regardless if you're ready or not, right? Here they come. And so these 4 years do go by very quickly. I tell people, life goes fast through your young adults when they're growing up. And so you have to sit down and figure out what your goals are. Even when my kid was in a traditional school, it's still my responsibility if my child doesn't know algebra. So it still falls on the parent. I always say you're in your own pocket.
Yeah.
You're in your own pocket. And that's why the parent is the best advocate for the student, because ultimately it really does fall back on the parent. And so, I love to raise children who are independent, who have the ability to grow from year to year. They're doing just fine. But I was vested. My husband and I, we're both vested in it. We don't want to be taking care of 7 children for the rest of our lives. We got motivation, right? Right, Rochelle? We're gonna be
absolutely. I want to be free.
So it's our, it's the goal to be able to move. And of course, again, you're not behind. You don't have to compare. I always say you have nothing to prove and nothing to lose in homeschooling. It's really about you becoming the best version of yourself and through education. But the prayer is that you have a love for learning in the environment of your homeschooling. Again, I used to say to my son, my younger son, he was having trouble with his counting. I was like, they're going to rob you if you don't know how to make change. He learned how to count. He's like, oh, wait a minute. I was like, y'all, you want extra money? Go to Leo, because if he can't count, so you want to set up an atmosphere where they love learning as opposed to, I got to learn this information.
Right.
So I think that changes the game if you approach it that way.
And of course, we've got to look at the environment we're raising them in. It's not the same. We're not giving them the same world that we grew up in. And so the skills they need today are not the same, but we're still expecting them to do the same, to produce the same when it comes to their education. And so nowadays, yes, they need to learn to read and write and spell and do math and, calculate and make change and understand where their bank balance is. All those things are going to still be necessary. But they also probably need to know how to be able to run a meeting like this, how to be able to do not even just a PowerPoint slide, but how to create entire workshops and lead, be able to communicate well on social media. They've got to be lighting design and video editing, all of those skills that could use the same tools to teach them reading and writing and math and everything else. Let them create their own course. Let them create something. There's a young man, I think it's called Latin with Andy. He is now in college, but he created for himself the entire Henley Latin program that is now putting him through school. So there's so many ways that our kids can earn a living now for their future that don't require them being 18, that don't require them finishing our high school or our traditional school set of courses. Where I can't think of this young boy's name. When I use him all the time, I should really memorize his name. But he's like 7 years old and he makes $1 million opening toys on YouTube. And we're trying to tell them, you got to do this math book so you can get you can get into college, so you can get a good job. He opens, not plays with them, he opens them. So the world is much different when they can be TikTok influencers because of the dance they created and YouTube sensations because the song they made went viral. Justin Bieber was found on YouTube. They can sell things on Etsy. They can write their own books on Amazon and be published. So the world is very different, and just continuing to try to require the exact same thing that we've been doing for 100 years is just not realistic.
Yeah. To that, it's still work that you have to put into being an influencer. Like, you still have to find advertisers. You still have to get 10 million followers. You still have to put out content constantly. So it's not like, it may seem like, I'll just get on TikTok and make $1 million. No, there's a whole process to it. There's a whole business management that you have to do. So that's an opportunity to learn business skills. You want to get on TikTok? Okay, well, you need to find advertisers, and where are you going to get 10 million followers? And, so that's an opportunity to learn advertising skills and business skills and content creation skills and all that. Okay, so I think those are the questions. Okay, trying to think, do I have any other questions? Wait, so I keep missing. Is Lanister?
Minister. Yes.
Lanister. Okay.
Yes.
You could do the GED as well, right? To graduate.
If you're
to
homeschooling, if you're
Yeah.
homeschooling, you don't need to. I mean, homeschooling is legal in all 50 states. So, that's why we want you to call us at HSLDA. Our attorneys can help you. Is it necessary if a parent has the ability to home educate their student? So you want to make sure you get the right information. I think sometimes people get a little confused about if a GED is necessary. So our legal team can answer that question. But I know if it were my child and I had the ability to homeschool, I would homeschool over the GED program every time. Because you know what's best and you know what your child needs to learn. So it's exciting. So and so again, give us a call at or I should say, find us online at www.hslda.org, and we can answer those questions because 99.9% of the time it's not necessary.
So now, what if the parent doesn't know? Because the expectation is that the parent is supposed to be the one teaching. So what if they don't know the content?
That's a good question. Just because you are have a parent-directed program, that doesn't mean that you have to teach all the information. You may send a kid someplace else. You got tutors right here on your program. There are people who can teach it. There's neighbors, there's friends. Some of the things that my husband is teaching my son, I couldn't teach him. So there are other people. You have like Rochelle said, you have a community. So don't feel like just because your kid is now over 5th grade and you're thinking, how can I teach high school? I wasn't good at algebra myself. Well, it doesn't have to be you. And there's some amazing curriculums. I use one that I just love for math. It goes from 3rd grade to pre-calculus. And, it's an online tutor with it. It's got, the questions. And I have been known to play them back myself and we learn together. Right? Because I don't want to end the relationship on whether or not the math problem should go side to side or top to bottom. Tomato, tomato. Let's call the whole thing off. So it's a way for you all to learn. So I think the parent has to decide what they want to teach and what they don't want to teach. And don't feel like just because you don't want to teach it. There are online curriculums, web-based, there are books, there's videos. We live in technology society now. There is no reason why you can't learn something. And so just because you don't know it, the parent, right, that doesn't mean that your child can't learn it. So, be creative here and don't let that be the deal breaker in your high school. I know sometimes people get nervous about high school, but I love homeschooling high school and it's exciting. And you give me a subject and I'll show you how you can teach it.
And I went back to school. My son hit high school. I went back to school. I sure did. With my PhD, I went right on back to school because I was not a math person. I was, my degree is in education, and he clearly has gifts. For some reason, I have all STEM kids. Now, I say this is God's little joke for me. Right? This is my second life I'm living because I was the one who ran from math. I did. And when my son hit 10th grade, this is when I realized that I had to outsource because I walked beside him the whole time. And even if you talk to my son now, he will thank me for, walking beside him, do the whole math thing. He took a dual enrollment college algebra class. I was right there beside him. Late at night, he was studying. I was studying with him. He said, Mom, what's this answer? We get in the books together and we were digging for the answer. And I'd say, and I would walk him through it. And I would say, well, where do you find this? I would ask him questions that would lead him to find the answer. That is all I could do. He graduated in AP calculus. I never got that high. I never did. And so here I am with my daughter, and we're walking this same path. She has far exceeded what I can do. But again, she doesn't look at me and say, well, Ma, you can't do this. No, we have the same level of conversations. At this point, she started 10th grade and we outsourced because she's on a different path too. But I don't say to her, well, I can't homeschool you anymore. No, absolutely not. We are walking this path together. This is just a journey. So, I can't imagine not walking this path. And she will say to everybody, no, I'm fully homeschooled, but she does take classes at the community college. And so, no, I am enjoying every single bit of this. But when my kids get to the point where it challenges what I think that I can give them, I don't want to hold them back because of what they can do and their natural gifts. It's time to outsource.
Yep.
Or behaviorally, you also can hit a wall behaviorally, where your kids, they hear what other people say, and you say the same thing and they don't hear it, and then somebody else says the same thing and they're like, "Mom, guess what? This person says," and it's like, "Oh, really? Because I said the same thing the other day." And, and that it's time to outsource.
Yeah, and I think we also forget that when we're homeschooling, we get the teacher's edition. We get the solution manual. So it's
That's
not
right.
like we don't know where the answers are. And one of the things we've got to release, from traditional school is that this whole idea of I'm going to use this term, this whole idea of cheating. Like it's cheating to look at the answer book. If we're raising adults, as adults, when we don't know the answer, we look for help. We Google it. We ask somebody else. It's called collaboration as adults, but we term it as cheating when they're kids. And so when I've come across something where I didn't know how to help my student, I open the answer book. I look at it. I try to see if I can figure it out from the answer book. If we still can't get it, we're going to do it together. We're going to Google it. We're going to send it to Auntie so-and-so. We're going to reach out to someone else in the class. We're going to reach out to the instructor. We're going to seek help, because the other thing is we're teaching them skills, not just subjects. Absolutely. And so when you hit a wall, when you're unsure, when you're not certain how to proceed, you don't just stay stuck. Keep moving. Find someone to help, whether you've outsourced to a tutor, or you're taking a program at a college level, or you simply go to the book, or you go to the internet, you Google it. Nowadays, I downloaded a new calculator on my phone the other day, and it asked me if I wanted to upgrade to where I can scan a math question and it'll tell me the solution. I mean, there's so many ways, so many resources we have access to in order to help our students. Early on, I would have loved to outsource certain things. I just didn't have the finances to do it. And so we've learned to utilize the resources that we did have to get it done. And I think it's so important to remember we have the answer book. We're not just stuck with the textbook trying to figure it out. It's not like school where they only send the textbook home. You've got the solutions book too.
Yeah, I think most importantly is we learn, your kid is not going to know everything, but they will learn how to learn. As my kids have gone on to college, and they'll call me and they'll say, "Mom," I was like, "I have to do the same thing you have to do to find out what's going on. You're going to have to read it. You have to sit down and spend some time with the content. You know how to learn." And so when you know how to learn, you can learn pretty much anything. And I think that's what homeschooling is about.
That's what I was talking about before with these basic skills, the tools. If you figure out how to use the tool, and then if you don't have the tool, maybe there's somewhere you can jigger it. For example, like a slotted screwdriver. If you didn't have a slotted screwdriver, maybe you could use the side of a dime, to take that screw out. But you have to understand what's my objective and what's the problem, and then how can I use the tools that I know? And if you don't know, then how can I figure it out? That's what we're doing is we're teaching them to think. And sometimes that doesn't always happen in the classroom, but I would think that happens much more at home on a one-to-one basis. It happens with the tutoring, doesn't it, Gabrielle?
It does.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. But that's on a one-to-one. When there's a classroom, it's the masses, you're going to lose some of the kids at some point. It's a numbers. It's unfortunate, actually. But on a one-to-one, if you can't, if you can't handle a one-to-one situation, that's a whole lot easier, I think.
Yeah. All right. I know time is fast spent, so I'll just ask this last question. So there's a stereotype when it comes to homeschooling about homeschooled kids. They're weird, or they don't socialize well, or like they're gonna be like laughed at. Like there's this negative stereotype when it comes to homeschooled kids. So how do you guys respond to something like that?
I have not had that experience. I think I think that the homeschooled kids are thriving. Actually, they're really fun people.
Well, as an expert in personality types, the Myers-Briggs type indicator, I just want to let you know that it's usually an extrovert that feels that a person, it doesn't have social skills. And sometimes we misunderstand what that all means. And so I just want to unpack it for those, because if I had a quarter for every time somebody says, but what about socialization? You know, just putting a kid with 2,000 kids doesn't make them social. It just makes them around 2,000 kids pretending that they're talking.
Yeah.
And so many of my students, children are introverts, and one of my daughters is an extreme introvert. And I taught her, I said, 70% of the highest paid people are introverts. You see, because extroverts are talking about it and introverts have done it, right? And so it doesn't mean just because you don't have a lot to say that there's something wrong with you, or that you have or that you do have a lot to say that you're more gregarious or outgoing. And so I think that's the thing. So one of the things that I said to my daughter, who's an introvert, I said, "Hun, if you ask the right questions as an introvert, you can save your energy." And sure enough, she went to an interview with 6 people, right? She was becoming an RA. And I was like, oh my goodness, Mari, how did you get through it? She says, oh my, I asked a question and they all got to talk and nobody even noticed the fact that I didn't even answer. You know, you gotta love it. So it's being able to help kids understand that just because you don't have the gift of gab, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. I tell the story that every kid, I'm an extrovert, so I used to gather the kids up around the table. Come on, you know, like Magic School Bus. We're gonna all learn together, right? And there's this kid who says, I just want to read in my room. I just want to read in my room. I don't want to be at the table with the little kid, you know, my toddler sister. And so we have to be mindful that there are different styles and different personalities and different preferences in education. And that's what doesn't happen in a traditional school setting, right? Everybody's got to be in there together and we all have to be quiet together. You have to sit down together. And it doesn't entertain people who have different personalities. So when you're like Rochelle and I, and you have a lot of people, you have a lot of kids, you're outnumbered. You and your husband are outnumbered. You learn that every personality is not the same. And when you understand personalities better, you can find your strengths in them, right? You know, my daughter who is quiet, you know, she loves to cook. You know, we've been struggling on our meals since she's been going to college, you know? And then I have another daughter, you know, we all have skills, right? And there's another one who will answer the questions. That's my extrovert. You know, she'll talk to the mail lady. Oh yeah, we're doing fine. I'm so glad you left, you know? You'll be surprised. The gift that you have, God gives us a gift to have kids who have different personalities. And I think one of the best things we can stop doing is making them think something's wrong with them. So when they say, what about socialization? I was like, you know, talking is overrated, right? Overrated. And homeschoolers just need to stay home. Let's just tell the truth, okay? We may have small groups, but we will chat it up. Oh my gosh. I mean, look at us now. We've been on for 3 hours. I'm having trouble socializing. But thank you for your concern.
Right, exactly. And you know what? The reality, what I tell my kids is, I said, you know what? You're going to hear these things all the time. And there's nothing I can really prepare you for. But what I tell my kids is, my goal is to build you inside out. It's to prepare you for anything that you're going to hear. Like, I'm going to work on you and who you are. So when I put you out there, I want you to know who you are. Right. And so regardless of what you hear, if it's not that you're an unsocialized homeschooler, it's going to be something else. So when you step out, I want you to be confident in who you are. If they call you a nerd, be confident, right? They're going to talk about you because they don't know who you are, or they're going to talk about you because they like who you are and they don't know how to express it, right? So either way, people are going to talk about you. They either like who you are or they don't. But either way, the statements are unfounded, because when they find out who you are, they're going to like you for you, because you are genuinely a great person. Right. And so, you know, homeschoolers, you're going to find weird homeschoolers. You're going to find weird people everywhere. Right. But it's not homeschoolers are weird. They're just generally weird people around. And so it's not unique to homeschoolers.
High paid too, by the way.
Right. They probably are millionaires. Exactly. You know.
Yeah, we buy into the stereotype full force. Yes, I tell my kids, yes, we're weird. Weird people do abnormal things. It is abnormal for us to not go to school and people follow us. It is abnormal for us to be on a field trip on a Tuesday at
There you
9 o'clock
go.
in the morning. It is abnormal for our TV time to become learning time. It is abnormal for parents and children to get along and love each other. It is abnormal that you like spending time with your brother who's 5 years younger than you. It is
Exactly.
abnormal that my son has had a full-time, not full-time, he's had a job since he was 9 because he spoke up for himself. It's like, I can do that. Why have to be 15 to rake leaves,
Exactly.
So yeah, we're abnormal, and we'll probably be your boss someday.
Exactly. There you go. Mic drop on that one. Exactly.
All right. Fabulous. All right, ladies, thank you so much for these fabulous words. And, please reach out to our speakers if you guys have any further questions, but time is fast spent. So we're going to cut it short. But I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to shout out your businesses, your organizations, whatever it is. So I'm going to put you all backstage, and I'm just going to pull you out one at a time. So my presenters, they're here out of the kindness of their heart. They came for free, so of course I got to allow them to promote their business. So I'm going to take it one presenter at a time. I'm going to go in order of presenters. So I'm going to allow my presenters to give a shout out. So I'm going to start off with Shauna. She actually had to leave. Unfortunately, she was our first speaker. So I'm just going to talk about her business a little bit. So Shauna, give me one second. I'm trying to see. Okay. So Shauna, her business is called Invada, and her business, she does homeschool advising, and she helps match families with learning advisors. They also help families discover the best curricula for their students, and they also help you guys with the paperwork, how to navigate the paperwork. So I know we said don't be afraid of the paperwork. I'm just saying, but if it is something that you need help with, Invada does that as well. And I think one of the key factors that her business offers is that they actually do the paperwork for you. So if you want to outsource paperwork, doesn't matter what state you're in, they serve people all 50 states. They help you navigate the paperwork part of homeschooling, and they can either help you do that or they can do it for you. So if you want to outsource that, reach out to Shauna's business. It is called Invada. You could check them out online. It is www.invadalearn.com. You could also find her on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter with the same handle, Invada Learn. So I encourage you to check them out if you are looking for that service. All right, so I'm going to bring Tamara up now, and I'm going to let her talk about her business.
Okay, so if you are in the New York area, particularly downstate New York, Westchester Homeschoolers on Facebook, you can find our group there. The book African American Families and Why We Homeschool is available on Amazon. And beginning in January, I will be launching a podcast, Everybody Homeschools. So if you're looking for resources in terms of connecting, I also run Classical Conversations communities in New York. So we cover all of New York except New York City. So if you're looking for a weekly support group, that's a way you can connect with some homeschool families, or even online through our Facebook group. And then again, coming January, our podcast, Everybody Homeschools.
Fabulous. Thank you, Tamara. Okay, so the next one is Sandra Price Blyden. Oh, and again, she couldn't be with us, but she pre-recorded her shout out. So I'm going to play that right now.
Blyden Curriculum Consulting, LLC. We are your curriculum concierge. We offer two major programs under Blyden Curriculum Consulting. The first one we have is Home Educate VI. This is our major program where we offer homeschool and traditional school resources and services to assist parents in making sure that their child perform academically the way they need them to. Another program we have is Homeschool Level Up. That's a fairly new program. With this program, we assist homeschool parents in providing them with live virtual assistance as far as teachers to teach the core subject areas for the homeschool week. We also provide these parents with grades and other support to help the children throughout the entire week. Some other service that we provide at Blyden Curriculum Consulting LLC is we offer professional development for parents. We work with umbrella schools, co-ops, learning pods, and all of the other type of activities and programs you can find in your homeschool. Don't forget, visit our website at www.blydencurriculumconsultingllc.com. You will find a variety of activities and resources. See you there. Goodbye.
Fabulous. Thank you, Sandra, for that. All right, so I'm going to have Dr. Rochelle talk about her business or her organization.
Hi, everybody. As mentioned, I have a twofold organization here. I am an educational consultant at HSLDA, and of course, you can always reach out to HSLDA and just you can join HSLDA. You have access to me at hslda.org, where you can join and you can contact me and reach out to the HSLDA educational consultants, and you can always have access to me that way. I also am CEO of EFM Educational Consultants, which is a community-based organization, and the goal is just basically to support the community. There's one niche where I support homeschoolers, specifically those with struggling learners, every disability you can think of. I have a series of community supports that range from tutoring to we teach special classes. The goal is to reduce the barriers to special populations within the community. So that could be through engaging in learning processes. In all of our classes, we include students with special needs that range all the way from preschool, where we have service providers that are running some of the classes, some of the preschool programs, all the way through. We have high schoolers where we run things like SAT prep programs. We have math programs at all different levels. But basically, it's to create a community for individuals with disabilities that are fully inclusive. And so all of our programs are fully inclusive. So if you're looking for any kind of support, preschool all the way through high school, just reach out to efmeducation.com, and you can see there where you can find and contact me there.
Fabulous. Thank you, Dr. Somerville. All right, I'm going to bring Lanissa back on so she could talk about her business and her organization.
Thank you. So here's how we sum it up. Less stress and more time to enjoy homeschooling. That's the reason why you want to connect with us at HSLDA. So it's www.hslda.org. And we just hope to get a chance to connect with you, for you to join our community, either on Facebook or on the internet. We're just here to serve. You get personalized guidance with legal protection for your homeschooling. And I think that's just the best way to sum it up. We have several educational consultants, several attorneys that can help you homeschool. Just like Dr. Rochelle said, you have access to us. So we're here to serve. We thank you for the opportunity. And our goal is just to make homeschooling possible for all. So it's been my pleasure to serve today. And we just hope that we'll get a chance to work with you again. And if you're looking for Lanissa James, you could always go to lanissajames.com and see some fun and crazy ways that we're homeschooling. But the best way to reach me is at hslda.org.
Fabulous. Thank you, Lanissa. All right. And lastly, Jan, go ahead and promote your business.
I would just like to tell everyone who is actually attempting this homeschooling that I have much, much respect for you. You will not be sorry that you chose this avenue. In the meantime, I would love to be able to help you out in any way I can. I support the student and the parent. At jstutor.com, I've recently been approved by the state of Arizona with their ESA program. That would be the Empowerment Scholarship accounts. I do one-on-one tutoring, preschool through 12th grade. Occasionally I'll take a college student. I do custom curriculum, support for the parents and the caregivers. And then I can connect with you with over 1,200 educational videos that I've done that span curriculum from preschool through 12th grade. And also with the 2 books that I've written, Teach Your Preschooler to Learn and Teach Your Child to Learn. So you can contact me through jstutor.com. There's a contact form on the website, and I'll be happy to get in touch with you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Jan. All right. Whew. We have reached the conclusion of our event. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you for those who came. Thank you for the 4 raffle winners. Thank you guys for your support in putting together this event. But we got through yet another event. I think out of the 3 that I've done of these, I think this one was the longest. but listen, let me just yes, thank you, Tanya. But it's all of this is information, and all of this is information for you, and this is free for you, and I encourage you to use this information and use it to, at the best of your ability, take it as far as you can go. So I hope you guys take advantage of the words that the speakers said, whether you are live with us or watching on the replay. I encourage you to take advantage of all these lovely words today. So, where is my banner? All right, so let me do my closing here, and then we're going to wrap it up. All right, so this workshop, Homeschooling 101, was brought to you by A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. So if you are looking for a tutor, you want to give your child that extra boost, you can reach out to us. Our website is www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. You can also email us, success@astepaheadtutoringservices.com. You could also look for us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Eventbrite, and WhatsApp. So hit us up on our social media and follow us. So this replay will be on our YouTube page and our Facebook page and our Twitter channel. So this replay will be on all of those things, which will even more encourage you to check out our social media accounts. So all of this stuff will be available there. But yes, follow us on all of our social media and check us out online. If you are looking for tutoring services, maybe you're homeschooling a child and hey, there may be a subject that you have no idea how to teach it. There's no harm in outsourcing it. So if you want to outsource, you want to look for a tutor, you can reach out to us. Again, our website is www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. And I also want to encourage you, if you are watching this right now, whether in real time or on the replay, drop a comment. Let us know what you thought about this event by dropping a comment in the comment section below. If you're watching this on Facebook Live or YouTube or even Twitter, drop a comment. Let us know what you thought about this event, any pros, any cons. Let us know. Put your feedback in the chat. Let us know what you thought about that as well. And I may put this event on my podcast as well. So there may be an audio part to this. So if I do decide to put this on audio and you just so happen to be listening to this on our podcast, drop a rating and let us know what you thought about this episode. What else? We also have a podcast. It is called Hot Topics. So we talk about things in education, employment, empowerment. What else? Disabilities. We talk about a lot of different things, and we have real talk about real things. So I encourage you to listen to our podcast. It is called Hot Topics. Just look for the pencil. It's like a black and a gray tip. So look for the pencil logo. It is called Hot Topics. You can listen to that podcast wherever there are podcasts. So whatever your favorite podcast station is, if it's Spotify, if it's Apple, if it's Podchaser, whatever it is, check out Hot Topics and follow us. And we are also on YouTube as well, so you can watch our podcast episodes on YouTube. All right. So we have reached the conclusion of this event. We are officially done. Thank you so much for the speakers. Thank you for those who attended. Thank you for those who are watching this on the replay right now. And we will see you next time. So I'm going to play my closing credits. But yes, thank you guys again. And thank you for sticking it out for 3 hours and 17 minutes. All right, you guys, thank you again. And we'll see you next time. Bye.